So welcome everybody to this great webinar of Saptarishis Astrology. Today we have with us Kṣaṇāti. Welcome Kṣaṇāti.
Namaste.
It is a great honor to have you again with us. And I know people have participated into the previous webinars as well, and we don't want them to stop. Yeah. It is a great pleasure to listen to you and all your experience. And we welcome on board Madhura. Hello, Madhura and Bettina.
Namaste.
So we have a huge, journey in front of us. It will be a long journey. And I hope that everybody enjoys it to the utmost level. So, Kṣaṇāti, you may start.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Namaste to all the panelists. It's such an honor to have your support here today, and I'm just so grateful, and I feel so supported by the Saptarishis team and community, and it's been such an honor for me to work with this organization from day one, and I hope to continuously serve this organization to as much as the possibility that I can. This is a very exciting time for me because I did 3 webinars on astrocartography. Sunil Ji, many months ago, contacted me, reaching out to me, discussing that he liked the way that I had integrated Jyotish and astrocartography and wanted me to teach some series on this. And I said, of course, it would be my greatest honor, Sunil. And so we did some series on astrocartography. And he said that when I was done the series with astrocartography, then I could teach about what truly is my happiest, or what truly is my, I feel is my purpose, or what I would be the most excited to teach about. And I love astrocartography. But really, why I became an astrologer and why I continue to be in astrology is because I understand that Jyotish influences our karma. And when we work on that karma, we can help achieve these different aims of life. And so when we improve our karmic relationship to a planet, we can help achieve dharma, artha, kama, moksha, improve our quality of life, and improve the length of our life. And so that's my real essence of why I love to be an astrologer, is this ability to help other people achieve the different aims of life, their quality of life, maybe make their life longer. And so I wanted to do a nine series where we go through each planet and we discuss how can we improve our karma with this planet. And this is a real joy for me and a real excitement. And I think there is no better planet to start with than the great Shani Deva. I think I started with this planet over every other planet because a couple reasons. One is I'm an Aquarius or Kumbha Lagna, so I'm ruled by the planet Saturn. And secondly, Saturn just recently in the past few weeks has went into its new transit in Sagittarius. So intuitively, I felt that this was a good time to discuss how to improve our planetary karma with Shani Deva. And I'm just so excited to share this time and space with everybody here.
That's wonderful.
Great.
Okay, so as you can see, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. So how to improve our planetary karma with Shani. So we're going to look at a lot of different things here today. We're going to use ancient techniques, so certain techniques that are in ancient Vedic scriptures. Then we're going to do some contemporary or Ayurvedic lifestyle practices that'll help honor or improve our relationship with the planet. And then sometimes our consciousness or the way we think or our paradigm of how we look at the world. This can also help improve our karmic relationship to the planet. So we'll be looking at all of these different things today and how to improve our karma with Saturn And through this process, we can help achieve whichever aim of life Saturn is influencing in our chart, whether it's our dharma, artha, kama, moksha, or multiple. By working with these remediations and understanding the karma of Saturn, we can really improve our karma with Saturn.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is the aim we should have as being interested into astrology, self-improvement.
Thank you. So I split it up into 6 different areas. First, we're going to take a look at Saturn's karma. So how does Saturn's karma manifest? How do we feel Saturn's karma? How does Saturn like to express its karmic lessons? It's important to know this because based on how Saturn expresses karma is how we may improve our karma. So we'll go into a lot of interesting discussion about some of the different ways that Saturn expresses its karma. And then we'll discuss a little bit about Saturn's current transit in Sagittarius and what are some of the specific implications of Saturn's current position. And some of our examples later in the session discuss people having Saturn returns who have Saturn in Sagittarius. But we'll discuss a little bit about Saturn's current energy in Sagittarius and how I feel that will be influencing our world. And then the third aspect I want to discuss is Saturn and planetary dignity, because Saturn's karma manifests very differently depending on its planetary dignity. This means its exaltation, debilitation, or the sign that the Saturn is in. And based on its relationship to the sign and the ruler of the sign, it's going to influence its karma greatly. And this is also going to have its influence on different lugnas, because the lugna is going to relate to Saturn differently based on how it relates in its planetary dignity. So we're going to look at that in detail as well. Then we'll start focusing on how to improve our karma with Saturn. And we're going to be looking at it from a lot of different angles, from ancient practices to contemporary practices, Ayurvedic or lifestyle practices. So we're going to focus on how to improve our karma with Saturn from a lot of different angles. And then we're going to take different examples from the community that people have sent me that I thought were particularly interesting, and we're going to analyze them. And these questions might be beyond some of the simple aspects we talked about. They might be more advanced questions that we can kind of look at and begin to see how to work on our karma with Saturn based on some questions that different members of the community might have. So we're going to cover a lot when it comes to Shani Deva today. And it's just such a blessing to be able to honor and serve this great graha through this webinar today. And I'm so grateful for everyone that's a part of this. I can't even begin to express. So here we have a Shani yantra and the traditional Shani mantra. And I thought it would be very nice before we got started on the webinar today that if we all did a prayer to Shani together. So I have provided this text here on the right, and there are lots of different pronunciations of this Shani mantra. And so my pronunciation might be a little different than the pronunciation of the text. But this is the basic Shani mantra that I like to use when I'm offering prayer or honor of Shani. And it is said that when you are looking at the Shani yantra while performing the Shani mantra, it magnifies the honor. So you're increasing your honoring of Saturn by taking a look at the yantra while you're repeating the mantra. And so basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to read this whole sutra here about 3 times. And after the reading of the sutra is complete, I'm going to do 108 repetitions of the tantric mantra, and that's not written here. So it's easy to pick up on. It's Om Pram Prim Pram Sa Shanaishcharaya Namaha, And we'll do 108 repetitions of that after we complete. And this will be a very profound way to honor Shani as we go into this webinar together. So everyone, if you are recognizing of this sutra or mantra, I encourage you to join us. Otherwise, the text is here for you to follow along. And so I'm just going to do a short meditation and an Om, and then start on this mantra.
Wonderful.
Nilambuja samabhasam raviputram yamagrazam chayamartanda sambutam tam namami shanaishcharayam. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Shanaishcharaya Namaha. Nilambuja samabhasam raviputram yamagrazam chayamartanda sambutam tam namami shanaishcharayam. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Shanaishcharaya Namaha. Nilambuja samabhasam raviputram yamagrazam chayamartanda sambutam tam namami shanaishcharayam. Om Aim Hrim Shrim Shanaishcharaya Namaha. Om Pram Prim Pram Sa 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 Shanaishwaraya Namah Om Pram Prim Pram Sa. 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 Shanaishcharaya Namaha 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 Om Pram Prim Pram Sa. Shanaishcharaya Namaha. Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you very much, Kṣaṇāti. It was very beautiful.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing that mantra with me. It does take a long time, I know, but I think that is appropriate because Saturn, when it comes to Saturn, everything is best done in its longest form. So I thought we would go with the full form of the Saturn mantra there. So thank you, everyone, for your patience and sharing that space with me. Namaste.
People are saying they enjoyed it also very much.
Okay, good. Good. So let's get started then. So
Yes.
when it comes to discussing Saturn's karma, and we could talk 12 hours about this, but I think we're going to spend about 2-3 hours discussing Saturn. So there's always going to be more to discuss, but we're going to try to give a basic understanding of Saturn's karma so that everyone can get a concrete, literal understanding of some of the karmas here. The first one that I want to mention is that in the ancient text, Saturn is known as the force of the universe, which delivers, controls, and manifests growth through facing our karma. And one of the most detailed translation of Saturn is that force of the universe which controls. So really, we like to think in our lives that we're in control. And ultimately that God is in control. But in the way that God manifests its energy is through Saturn. So sometimes God's control is a manifestation through Saturn, and that is a very powerful karmic relationship. Saturn is traditionally called Shanaishcharaya in Sanskrit, which translates as the slow mover, or that which moves slowly. And so the inherent energy and nature of how Saturn manifests its karma is within this title of Kṣaṇīśķarāya, the slow mover. And when things move slowly, whether no matter what aspect or aim or area of our life it is, the fact that it's moving slowly and the fact that we're a human being makes it an inherent challenge. Saturn's karma, from as general a perspective as we can take it, relates to having to persevere or endure through tests, delays, challenges, obstacles, hurdles, and adversity. So our ability to survive and prosper through these difficult mechanisms. And when we do, this is how change manifests in our life: success, prosperity, and growth. When we go through certain challenges, when we go through certain adversities, delays, obstacles, and hurdles, when we overcome them, that is when the greatest amount of success, prosperity, or growth can manifest for a soul. Saturn is the planetary force which manifests lasting positive change and virtue in our lives. And it says somewhere in the ancient text when I was reading that no true spiritual change or growth manifests without the work of Saturn. And so the only way for us to truly become virtuous is through Saturn. Yes, Guru, Jupiter, Brihaspataye is the great guru, is the great teacher, and also possesses virtues. But just because you know of a virtue and you know that you wish to possess that virtue does not mean that you possess it by any means. And Saturn is the actual planet necessary that does the work in order for us to achieve the virtue. Maybe the virtue is a wisdom of Jupiter, but in order to become that virtue, in order to achieve that virtue, we need to use the work of Saturn. And so it is necessary for Saturn to manifest or affect that growth within us. Now, some of these virtues that I'm discussing, which Saturn's help grow and manifest within us, primarily patience. Patience is the first one that needs to be discussed. It's probably one of the primary karmas in terms of improving our relationship with Saturn, because Saturn is Kṣaṇīśķarāya, or the slow mover. So patience is an extremely important virtue that one embodies in their help to manifest growth within themselves in their work with Saturn. This also includes charity, honesty, acceptance, humility, and kindness. And so these are all what we call virtues. And it doesn't matter whether we're talking about Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. All of these virtues are upheld in the most highest respect, no matter what religion aspect you are coming from. So this is something on a profound level which the soul strives for. And if we want to reach these virtues, which the soul strives for, well, we have to go through Saturn. And one of the things I like to mention is, in truth, no individual knows which virtue they possess. And even if they have some awareness of the virtue that they do possess, they have no idea what level of that virtue they possess. So, for example, I like to think that I am a patient individual. But how do I know how patient I am? There is no way to test my patience. I can't go to the doctor and get a patience test. So the only way to truly test the patience, or to grow in the patience, rather, is to have the patience tested, is to have the patience challenged, is to have adversity when it relates to patience. So the only way that we grow or become patient individuals, which is a virtue, is to have our patience tested. And so this is really one of the ways that kind of captures the essence of how Saturn works, is that it helps us grow in the highest regard. But the only way to truly grow in that regard is to be tested, and it will test and challenge us in these many ways.
And everybody gets tested.
Yeah, everyone has Saturn, and everyone has different varying levels of karma with Saturn. But no matter what, we have Saturn Mahadasha periods and we have Saturn Antardasha periods. We have Satisati, where Saturn is transiting our moon, and we have the Saturn return, where Saturn returns back to its original sign that it was in at the time of our birth. So this is just a part of being a human being. This is part of being alive. It's the human condition. But depending on your karma with Saturn, these challenges, they have a different nature to them. They have a different potency to them. And these are some of the more subtle aspects. But yes, everybody has this karma in their life. And it is something that I think more on a philosophical level, that or on a spiritual moksha level, if we are ever going to break this cycle of reincarnation, and I don't think I'm very many lifetimes away from even thinking about it, but if I'm ever going to break this cycle of reincarnation, then I know that patience is going to be a part of that. So Saturn will have to work with me many lifetimes in order for me to surrender and become more patient if I am ever going to even fathom the possibility of reaching moksha. So it's the work necessary to reach our dharma. It's the work necessary to reach our artha, kama, moksha. Now, depending where it is in our chart, it'll influence one aim of life or area specifically. But overall, what we're talking about is there is no way to grow or evolve without Saturn, and it is a necessary relationship. So,
well said.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Wonderfully said. Yes.
So, as I mentioned, one only knows patients by their patients being tested or their. Sometimes Saturn will put our life in situations where we're desiring something. We're desiring something very strongly, and we may be desiring on a soul level. It may relate to kama, which is our soul's dreams. So it's not a negative desire necessarily. It could be a profoundly positive desire connected to kama or our soul's dreams. And Saturn will delay that desire from manifesting or delay the attainment of that desire. And in the process, it's teaching you patience. Now, why does Saturn delay this way? Saturn delays because if we were to receive something at an improper time, we wouldn't be prepared or deserving to receive it. And there's an analogy that I like to kind of explain that kind of just gives a sense of some of this energy that relates to why Saturn delays things. What is the positive aspect of why Saturn delays things? And this is because, let's say you are walking down the street on the sidewalk, and you see an envelope lying on the ground, and you go and open it in that envelope, and there's $5,000 US. Well, it's your lucky day. You found $5,000 on the sidewalk. And odds are, research has shown, when you find money that you haven't had to work for, that you haven't had to go through struggle for, that what you're going to spend it on, as well as how quick you're going to spend it, vastly increases. So because you found that $5,000 on the ground, unless you have a good relationship with Saturn, but if you find that $5,000 on the ground, the majority of people are going to spend that on something that is not important. Not only are they going to spend that $5,000 on something that is not important or necessary, but they might go and spend it rather quickly. Let's say they find that $5,000, they spend it within 1 week because they found it. It was a gift. They didn't have to work for it. Then there's the other side of the spectrum, where somebody works a job where they get paid $5 US every 1 hour of work. Let's say they get paid $5 US for 1 hour of work. They work 40 hours a week, so they make $200 a week. So when they finally have saved up that $5,000, not only do they understand the value of the dollar, the value of money, but they know what that money should be used properly for. And they know the proper time that it should be saved or it should be spent. So why does Saturn delay? Because if you pick up $5,000 on the ground, you don't deserve that $5,000. You didn't work for that $5,000. And so it doesn't have its value. And so Saturn delays things so that they can properly accumulate their spiritual value. And then when they properly accumulate their spiritual value, that's when Saturn gives it to you, when you're prepared to receive it.
Not before time.
And sometimes, depending on the difficulty of the karma with Saturn, generally Saturn is a planet that delays, but it does not deny. But sometimes when the karma from past lifetimes is very difficult with Saturn, it will take away things because you don't deserve them your entire life. And I know that's hard to understand, but this is just the way that the Saturn karma manifests. But even when Saturn is debilitated in Aries, Aries is a movable sign. So with the profound help of the guru or a spiritual teacher, it's possible that even the most debilitated karmas with Saturn can offer some reward eventually. Some different examples of how the virtue of Saturn is possessed is honesty is a virtue. Again, every religion, every spiritual teaching considers honesty to be a virtue. And maybe we know how to be honest by Jupiter. We know that honesty is important. We know that honesty is a good thing. But no one knows how honest they are. Again, it's not like we can go to the doctor and get an honesty test. And we'd like to think that we're 100% honest, but I don't really believe that anyone is 100% honest. Maybe if they're some kind of enlightened Mahaguru, Sri Guru or something like that. But I believe that we only possess partial honesty, whether it's in our expression or what we keep inside of ourselves. But anyway, one of the ways that Saturn tests or challenges us is in terms of honesty, which means we only know how honest we are when there is a great reward as well as temptation for dishonesty. So if there is an opportunity to succeed or achieve or prosper through dishonesty and you still remain to be honest, well, that's when you know you have a good relationship with Saturn, A, and that B, that you have passed the test of dishonesty. And as you can see, Saturn has to do with politics, and politics fails this test every day because politics is dishonesty. So it's this, obviously, there's a connection there between politics and the struggle with honesty or dishonesty as well, and Saturn having this relationship to politics. But yes, Saturn will also test your honesty throughout your lifetime by giving you possibilities to succeed by being dishonest. But usually, eventually, even though the initial success comes from the dishonesty, in the long run, it ends up really preventing you to grow. And so this is which would prevent your karma from Saturn improving and therefore eventually dealing with some difficult consequences. So again, one of the great things that Saturn does is test our honesty in this way.
Mm-hmm.
Another manifestation of Saturn's karma is that it tests humility. Humility is a great word. I'm not sure exactly that if humility is absence of the ego, but rather that humility is when the ego isn't in control, because every single human being, we have an ego. But when we're not acting as our ego, we're having an awareness of our ego, then we are not, even though we still have this ego, we are not acting within it. But these are some of the energies that Saturn helps manifest within us. It tests our ability to be humble. Obviously, sometimes it forces humility when we keep wanting and desiring things in our life and we never get them. We think we're going to be the greatest athlete or movie star or professional athlete, movie star, a magician, whatever it is. And Saturn throughout your life might tell you, this is not who you are. You're not meant to become this. And in the process, it forces humility on you because your ego thought you wanted to become this something. Like, I'm ruled by the planet Saturn. even before I decided, well, astrology found me, but very many years ago, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. It just, it never worked out. And whenever I tried to play baseball, I tried out for different teams in college, and I always ended up getting hurt, and it was a way that Saturn, and this was in the beginning of my Saturn Mahadasha. So in a way, this is how Saturn humbled me and says, now, this thing that you thought you wanted to be, you're not going to be that. And this is another example of how God has a greater will for us and works through Saturn to manifest that greater will, and sometimes can take away our individual will so that we can connect to our higher will. I was not meant to be a baseball player. I was meant to be an astrologer. But in the process of not becoming a baseball player, I was certainly humbled. And this is just an example from my personal life, but it can manifest differently for everyone. But again, one of the ways that Saturn's karma will present itself in terms of the humility is that we don't know how humble we are until somebody begins to give you great praise or exaltation within a community or society. And so some of the ways in which Saturn works is it tests your humility by having circumstances in your life that can even inflate your ego. So yes, there's the circumstances in your life that don't allow you to achieve what you're desiring, and this humbles you in one way. But another way that the humility is truly tested with Saturn, and this is people who have more advanced karma with Saturn, is that they are celebrity, they are president, they are king, they are the highest level of whatever they're doing, but they still are equal with everyone else. They never let their position of power get to their head. So even though they are tested, the celebrity says, the fan of the celebrity of the musician says, "You are God and I love you." And the person goes, "I am not God, I am human. What are you thinking?" That is the true test of humility. That is the true test of humility. When someone says you are God and you say I am human. And I think this example shows up in the relationship with some very great gurus over time, and their exalted Libras and things like this that show a great amount of humility. Exalted Saturn that can show a great amount of humility.
In that regard, would you say that the tests become stronger?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Would you say? I mean, if you are a celebrity, then, I mean, all the world will know where you fail, you know?
Exactly.
So, it's not easy to hide those things anymore.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's it's no matter how successful or great amount of achievement that one person has in their life, that they never allow that success to make them think they are different from any other human being. But this is a challenge. I consider myself a very human being, and but I imagine that these great celebrities and musicians and gurus as well have to struggle with this idea of that they're being told that they're more than a human, so they struggle with it.
Sure.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Saturn's current transit in Sagittarius. We're going to go into a little bit different direction. We talked about some of the general karmas of Saturn, and we know some of the ways that Saturn tests us or challenges us or encourages us to grow. But how is Saturn manifesting during this specific period? And some of you, that this will be a specific way in which we can understand how is Saturn relating to us now. Now, Saturn's current transit in Sagittarius is all over the place. There's a lot of back and forth. So I have 4 points here to kind of discuss how Saturn is transiting in Sagittarius, because it's actually going to go back into Scorpio for a little while. And this can have very intense or inauspicious emphasis because it's kind of going backwards. So it's really making things go backwards from the progress that one might have obtained. So just to discuss a little bit of the situation, Saturn recently went into Sagittarius from Scorpio on January 27th, so 3.5 weeks ago or so. Then on April 6th, Saturn will still be in Sagittarius, but it will be going retrograde. And it'll go into a retrograde state, so it'll be traveling backwards. So it'll go into the early degrees of Sagittarius, and then we'll go back into the late degrees of Scorpio. And this is from June 21st to October 26th. So it will begin going retrograde on August 26th, but it will not go back into Scorpio until June 21st. But all of July, August, September, and most of October, it will be remaining in Scorpio. And then Saturn will permanently, and not permanently in the sense of forever, but it will go through a very long transit in Sagittarius from October 27, 2017 to January 24th, 2020. And this will be where the karma of Saturn and Sagittarius will really work itself out. When it's going back and forth like what we're experiencing now, we're getting a taste of the karma, we're getting a taste of the expression, but it is like looking into a telescope and you can see ahead. And so you can see some of the things that are going to be manifesting, but they will really not manifest fully until the fall, October 27th, when Saturn enters permanently back into Sagittarius. So as I mentioned, this is a magical transition when a planet enters a sign for some time, but then through retrograde motion goes back to its previous constellation. And then eventually...
Just 1 second. Sorry to interrupt you. Very sorry. But we have made a typo in the previous slide or not? Because 2020, not 20. 20. I'm sorry. All is fine.
Okay.
All is fine. Sorry.
That's okay. So, but I think the transit ends on January 24, 2020, and Saturn will enter Capricorn.
Very correct.
So this is a very magical transit. Now, magical, which means that it's kind of mystical or spiritual, but it's not magical in that it's only auspicious, because sometimes when a Saturn is going back to a sign, forward sign, it has inauspicious, which means malefic or challenging aspects to it. But I like to consider it magical or mystical in that it's not particularly common. This will show in a certain period, as I mentioned, from January 27th, which is where we're currently in, until June 21st, will we be getting a glimpse into the wormhole, which means we will be getting a vision into the future where we all become fortune tellers, where we can see into the crystal ball. But that doesn't mean that these changes are manifesting in the way that they fully will when Saturn enters its permanent transit in Sagittarius. So I like to think of this period that we're currently in Kṣaṇāti and Dhanus as a period for a transition into a new paradigm, but right now we're only getting a picture of it and not really experiencing that shift. So as I mentioned, those energies will dissipate and then they will come back. Now, when Saturn enters Sagittarius recently on January 27th, there will be unique frequencies operating at different levels, attempting to come in balance with each other, because Saturn and Jupiter, well, they don't exactly act the same. Maybe they're not the greatest enemies, but they are not the greatest friends. And it is important to know that these energies, which are in a very many ways different from each other, like Sagittarius and Kṣaṇāti, will be doing their very best to come into balance with each other. And this has many implications that can be very challenging on the physical realm. Um, Saturn, as we mentioned earlier, brings control, order, discipline, focus, as well as tradition and conservatism, especially in its relationship with Sagittarius. And so when these qualities, where Saturn enter Sagittarius, which relate to freedom, justice, fairness, and equality, we're going to have a little bit of a conflict on our hands. Sagittarius has a strong signification for the influence of the legal system and the justice system, morals and ethics in our world. And so the qualities of Saturn will become deeply embedded in the legal system and process as well. And I recently just wrote a short article that I called Saturn and Sagittarius, the control of justice. And I just like this saying that, the control of justice, because that's the real energy that I was getting from this transit. So when this conjunction of the control of justice and freedom and humanity and equality in our world, it will influence the political, the legal, the economic, and the civil situations in every continent, every country in the world. So even though I'm experiencing this as a member of the United States, I have a friend who is in Malaysia, and he said he is experiencing the same thing with his government. So it is just not limited to one location. It is in the whole globe that these kind of significations were going on. But depending on each country's relationship with Saturn, it may have more or less of an effect. Now, as I mentioned, the control of justice, and this relates to law. So controversial areas of law, which are areas of law that could either be considered liberal or conservative. And this includes some very controversial topics. And I apologize to all of these topics that I mentioned if it makes any of our viewers uncomfortable. But these are just some of the changes that will be manifesting during this period. And these controversial areas of law include abortion, same-sex marriages, homosexual marriages, cannabis, marijuana, the legalization of it, welfare, how much money is given to the poor and the needy, drugs, this includes pharmaceuticals, as well as the legalization or decriminalization of recreational drugs, immigration, and human rights or civil rights in general. All of these areas of law are subject to be regulated if legally possible during this time. That means that if the people are in power want to regulate these different areas in some way, they will try and they will have some success in the regulation of these areas. So in the past, there may have been more of a not as much of a control or restructuring or reorganization of these areas. And now, because of this shift, there can be more of a conservative energy being brought to these energies. And personally speaking, recently elected Republican conservative President Donald Trump is attempting to do absolutely everything he can within his power to control these different controversial areas of law. And our justice system is set up that he might not be able to do everything that he wants to do, but he is going to try his best to regulate all these different areas in my country. And so this will be manifesting in different countries all around the world as well. It's just manifesting in my country, but it's also going to be manifesting in different countries.
We're going to see that in Europe as well. Mm-hmm. Conservatism is really coming up everywhere.
Yeah. And this is going to be good for the liberals, but just not in the beginning. Now, Saturn has the potential because delay, but never denies. And the good always wins. The right side always wins. I believe the light always prevails. But Saturn has the potential to restrict or constrict or restrain certain levels of freedom, fairness, and equality in our world. And this is triple emphasized by the fact that Saturn is transiting in Sagittarius. Now, due to these legal changes and this conservative aspect, there's a strong potential for certain levels of freedom which human beings deserve to be delayed or challenged. So these are basic human rights. And I don't want to get too much into a political tangent, but in my country, we feel that it is a basic human right to be able to, for a woman to be able to choose what she does with her body. If two people who love each other want to get married, if they want to consider marijuana a medicine, that these are human being rights. And these rights or freedoms which human beings have during this transit in Sagittarius, there are going to be attempts for those freedoms or rights to be taken away. Now, as I mentioned, this will impact civil situations in all over the world and people's individual liberties and freedoms. Now, on the positive side of this, the regularization, conservatism, and restriction of Saturn in this transit will only make those human beings or individuals who stand and fight for justice, freedom, and equality more focused, directed, and disciplined in their fight. In other words, when the people who are fighting for freedom and equality in our world see that it is being taken away, this fire inside of them, this burning fire inside of them will grow, and they will begin to fight for what is right. They will begin to stand for their liberties. And so there is, even if it doesn't manifest on a physical level, there is this rebellion that eventually will strike against this conservative reformation. And whether these people are going to rebel with their words or they're going to rebel with their physical actions. And this is one of the situations that this really shows in America as well, is that there is a pipeline that they're trying to build in the Dakotas, and this is taking away the human rights freedoms of the Native American people. And there's just this fight between those people who know that it is the right of those people to have their land against these people that are building this pipeline just for business. So this is another example in my country of how it's manifesting. And I would like to think that eventually the Native American people, along with the force of the freedom fighters, will be able to come against this this oppression that Saturn is manifesting over them.
But Jupiter will come as soon as Shanidev will move out of Sagittarius.
Libra.
By that time, Jupiter will come to Sagittarius.
Oh, okay, beautiful. Yeah, so that is true too. And then things will really grow and expand, and particularly in a spiritual way. But we're just in the beginning of this transit, and the fact that it's going retrograde back into Scorpio means we're really going to be feeling this conservative aspect of it until it at least goes until its final transit in October. And then I still expect into the middle of 2018, even the beginning of 2018 will be more conservative restrainment and constrainment and things like this. So as I mentioned, we have Saturn that's causing the conservative aspect and the structuring and control of these controversial areas. But we also have Saturn helping the freedom fighters, as I like to call them, and those that stand for civil liberties of all people, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of sexual orientation, regardless of economic status, regardless of what country these people are coming from, that there is a belief and a fight for every individual's civil liberty and rights as a human being, regardless of all of these things that people like to choose to separate us. So there's the conservative aspect, but there's also the fight for righteousness and justice that I think will be captured during this period.
Very interesting point, no? So let's see for what it will be good.
Yeah. Right now, it's like, it seems like just my country is in pure chaos, but that's just my observation. So now I wanted to discuss getting away from the current position of Saturn, even though we're going to go into how Saturn does in other positions. And we're going to discuss Saturn and its relationship to planetary dignity, because the nature of how Saturn's karma manifests varies greatly depending on the dignity of the planet. And so we're going to base this dignity on what sign Saturn travels in, but primarily, instead of just focusing on the signs, we're going to focus on Saturn's relationship to the ruling planet of those signs, because that is what is going to be most significant in kind of understanding some of the specifics of how the karma manifests. And this can also be understood as how, if you are one of these lugnas in one of these signs that we talk about, this is how you will relate to your Saturn karma as well. So it applies to the position of your Saturn, but also to your lugna as well. Now, in the astrological text, it describes that a planet in an exaltation sign will reward 100% auspicious influence. That's wonderful. And that a planet in debilitation will promote 100% of an inauspicious influence. But in the case of Saturn, which is considered a majorly malefic planet, it is important to look at exactly how the planetary dignity will manifest, because 100% auspicious effect of a malefic planet can still be extremely challenging. And that sometimes an inauspicious effect from a malefic planet, because it's weakened, can be beneficial. So we'll talk about these different aspects. Now, a good way to understand the dignity's influence on Saturn relates to a commonly used phrase to describe Saturn, which I've always loved, but there are exceptions, but I've always kind of loved this, is that Saturn, or Shani, is a planet which delays, but it never denies. And while the statement is true for the most part, depending on the dignity of Saturn, there are exceptions to this rule, and I want to discuss this. But this is a general rule to understand, as we discussed earlier, how Saturn manifests his karma as Kṣaṇāti. Now, generally, Kṣaṇāti delays the full karmic potential of certain aspects of life because we are not prepared to receive the results from a spiritual or karmic perspective. So, as I mentioned earlier, there is a great guru in Shani, and Shani delays things because we are not ready to receive them, either from a spiritual or a time-oriented perspective. And that is why Saturn, again, suggests that we have to surrender our will to God's will, and that Saturn is like an angel or representation of God's will. Now, Saturn is a great controller. It is even called the great controller, specifically of time, and Saturn is also called Mahakala, the great time. And so the dignity of Saturn in the chart has a profound influence to the amount and the persuasion of delay, adversity, challenges, tests, and obstacles that we faced. So the dignity of Saturn, it's going to have a great influence on time as well. And that is an important aspect. As well as our reward, success, prosperity, or growth that manifests in overcoming these challenging aspects. So Saturn, which controls time, will profoundly give us delays, adversity, challenges, tests, and obstacles in our faith, but also reward success, prosperity, or growth when we overcome these obstacles. But the dignity of Saturn will have a great amount of influence into the nature of these obstacles and the inherent either challenging or more comfortable energy. Now, first we'll talk about Saturn's exaltation and debilitations because they're the most extreme examples, and this will be a really good idea into getting a sense of how Saturn's karma manifests through the different dignities. Now, when Saturn is exalted in Libra, you would think, oh, Saturn is exalted, so that means that I'm not going to have any problems with Saturn. That's not what it means. It does not signify a lack of any of the karmas of Saturn. And actually, it makes Saturn stronger. So when Saturn is exalted, it does not signify a lack of delay. It does not signify a lack of tests, obstacles, or challenges, but rather the exaltation will increase the amount of tests, delays, and challenges in one life. So even though someone's Saturn is exalted, it does not necessarily take away the amount of test, challenges, or struggles in one's life. It might even promote them or emphasize them or make them a primary theme to one's life. But so that is not how the exaltation, in my opinion, manifests by the reduction of these challenges. I believe the benefit or auspicious energy of an exalted Saturn is that when these tests, delays, and challenges that we mentioned that are going to be profound because of the exaltation are endured, passed, or overcome. So when we make it through these challenges, then the reward is profound, it's ideal, and it's immeasurable. And generally, this is due to Libra's vibration, which brings harmony and balance into one's life. In other words, an exalted Saturn does not mean that there is no challenge, but it just means that when you overcome that challenge, that the reward is greater than you could ever imagine. Because Saturn is a planet that delays, but it does not deny. And when it is exalted, the reward that you will receive from improving your karma with Saturn can be beyond your greatest imagination. A common example is I have a client, and she has an exalted Saturn Lagna. And she has been trying to have children with her husband for over 10 years and no success. And they were beginning to have doubts and the pain and the challenge and the suffering of wanting to have a child and keep trying, but not able to. Well, about 2 months ago, we found out she was pregnant. So even though Saturn delayed for so long, now she is fully prepared to be a mother, be a most amazing mother, and she is so grateful for that child because of all the challenge that she had to go through. And so this is a great example, I think, expressing how Saturn exalted manifests, that it delays, but it does not denies. And when you receive that reward, it will be greater than if you received it before you have gone through your challenge.
That is a very brilliant point, Kṣaṇāti, really. Because basically Saturn kind of, the dignity, the person is able to endure. So Saturn is kind of just testing to see how far he would go and if he was able to endure all the way until the right time is there. So
Yeah.
I think that's a very profound statement you made there.
Thank you.
Very well.
Thank you, Bettina. Yeah, and there were, when I talked to them individually, they said the mother so badly wanted to have a biological child, and the father said, I would be fine with adoption. So there was going to be a point where maybe they would have given up on the biological and forced and done the adoption, but because the mother had the exalted Saturn, she was not going to give up until it was absolutely not possible anymore.
Wow.
And
Nice example, yes.
So, yeah, and I use that example as I mentioned here, and how an exalted Saturn definitely gives the challenge, test, or delay, but as you mentioned, gives the ability to endure it, and also, I believe, guarantees the reward that is associated with the challenge. Now, when Saturn is debilitated, it's going to be, it's also not completely simple to understand. When Saturn is debilitated in Aries, when a planet enters a debilitation, it weakens the bala or the strength of that planet. So unless the chart is otherwise strengthened by another aspect of a planet or a divisional chart, if Saturn is debilitated in the birth chart, it shows a weakness of the planet Saturn. And so has a potential positive aspect to it. Now, therefore, it creates an effect in which the nature, this is the most challenging part of a debilitated Saturn, is that the nature or personality, or we could say in Sanskrit, the bhava of the delays, tests, and challenges within one's relationship to Saturn are particular, dark, or malefic.
Sure.
So when a Saturn is debilitated, the nature of these karmas is particularly malefic. Like many of my clients with debilitated Saturn, they have cancer. They have, if it's in the 8th house, they're struggling with some kind of chronic illness. If it's in the 5th house, they've never had children. If it's in the 7th house, they've never had marriage. So sometimes, because of this darker aspect of the debilitation, it makes the nature of the karma particularly difficult. But on the positive side of it, because I always like to put a positive spin on things, because Saturn is weakened, the overall Saturn-related difficulties in life can be limited or de-emphasized, which means as far as all the Navagrahas, 9 planets influence on your life, because Saturn is debilitated, maybe it's not one of the planets that has that great of an influence over your life.
Right.
It just shows that the influence it does have is particularly challenging. And as I mentioned, that Saturn is a planet that delays, but it never denies. But because Saturn is weakened that by its debilitation, it doesn't necessarily have the power to guarantee the obstacle that it's challenging. So a Saturn debilitated is particularly challenging in that the reward for overcoming the obstacle is also limited in its power. And I don't like talking about these darker aspects, but it is true that I think that even overcoming the obstacles of a debilitated Saturn, the reward is limited. The reward will not be necessarily improve the quality of the life. Now, of course, like if you use an example like someone who has a debilitated Saturn in the 8th house and they have cancer, when they overcome that cancer, they have life again, and that is wonderful. But still, having to go through death, almost dying, and it's a rebirth, and that is a great reward. But as you can see, it's still not auspicious. It's still not auspicious to almost die and to survive. It's inauspicious. Yeah.
Definitely.
So regardless of the concentration of the adversity related to the debilitation of the Saturn, which means regardless of how strong the Saturn is, the nature of the karma will usually relate to death, destruction, and disease. I see that manifest a lot, but not always, especially if Saturn is strengthened by other aspects or in different dignities that are more positive in divisional charts. It can take away from this more malefic energy, but I've seen it happen many times. Now, so while an exalted Saturn offers profound rewards for overcoming Saturn-related challenges and adversities, the debilitation weakens Saturn. And so the reward of overcoming that karma might be limited or diminished as well, which means when you do overcome that challenge, it still might not feel like the happiest time in your life, such as when a cancer patient has to go through chemotherapy, then they go through the remission, but during the remission, they're always at risk to gain the cancer back again. So
true, it is a fight. It is a fight, yeah?
Yeah, and Aries is a fighter, like a boxer. Boom, boom. So, in other words, on the positive, okay, so I think I already discussed all of this. Oh, yeah, so because it's weakened, as I mentioned, this is why a debilitated Saturn or a particularly weak Saturn, even though the general rule for Saturn is a planet that delays that it does not deny, a very debilitated or weak Saturn will remove.
In that regard, retrogression came into the game. So there is always a question mark coming up.
Yeah.
That of exaltation and debilitation plus retrogression. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And when it comes to the retrogression, as I've been taught from my teacher, that even though a planet that is debilitated and retrograde, it will act exalted, it's still in a condition of debilitation. So you're still going to get some of the effects of the debilitation, but in some manifestations, it will act exalted. So, for example, if a debilitated Saturn is retrograde, it might show either two aspects. That one, that there still is a great amount of reward for overcoming the challenge, or that the energy of the Saturn karma is not as malefic of an expression. And how the exalted retrograde might act debilitated is that even though you get the reward for overcoming the challenge, and the challenge is going to be great, especially with the retrograde exalted Saturn, that sometimes the reward is not going to be what you thought it was, which means you think you are going to receive a reward and you receive something different. So going back to my example, let's say that the client I was talking about, her greatest dream was to have a child, right? So if her greatest dream was to have a child, and then through all of this adversity and challenge, she manifests the birth of her child. But because it's retrograde, then that child is going to be difficult to raise. So then it's like, even though you thought this is what you wanted, when it happens, you get much more challenges. So the challenges just keep coming because it's going to act a little debilitated too. Yeah. So
yeah, there are always many factors to be considered, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we go a long way to achieve one point, only to discover and find out that actually this is not what we were looking for.
Yeah.
This also happens.
Yeah, that's how I feel like the Saturn exalted retrograde would act. Like you like overcome something and there's this great success, but that only comes with many more challenges,
right,
that you have to work through. And yeah, so it's like a constant challenge, but also constant reward. But if Saturn is exalted without retrograde, maybe the reward is like, not challenging.
An absence of challenge.
Yeah, if it's like in a pure exaltation with no malefic aspects. Yeah. So now to discuss a little bit about how Saturn acts in its own signs. Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. And when Saturn is within its own sign, it's extremely potent in its raw power or its raw essence. So it increases the bola or the planetary strength. And it also gives it a raw power. So while exaltation is considered 100% auspicious and a debilitation is considered inauspicious, a own sign is about 50% auspicious, 50% inauspicious, but it's just as strong as an exaltation. So what you get is an extreme power or strength from the planet, but it's a mixed effect of auspicious and inauspicious, sometimes depending on the nature of the relationship with the planet from other aspects. But the karma with Saturn is going to be emphasized because Saturn is going to be strong whenever Saturn is in its own sign. And it'll really relate to a lot of these general aspects of Saturn we talked about when Saturn is in Capricorn and Aquarius, where tests, delays, challenges, and obstacles give profound power to the karma that you're going through, which eventually includes profound rewards. And that usually when Saturn is in its own sign, it does indicate great rewards through the perseverance of the Saturn karma. It will show security, stability, and prosperity. So when Saturn is in Capricorn, it shows one's achievement of security, stability, and prosperity in the life. So Saturn over the course of your life works in your karma to give you security, stability, and prosperity in your life. But it does this through adversity, challenges, delays, and obstacles. So one of the best ways I kind of like understanding the way that Saturn will act in Capricorn is that you prosper or succeed or excel simply by enduring. So simply by showing up and being there, you achieve prosperity. So pretty much as long as you don't run away from your problems or run away from your karmas, when Saturn is in Capricorn, you will achieve a great amount of security and prosperity in your life.
Great point, Kṣaṇāti. Wonderful.
In Aquarius, it shows that these overcoming of challenges, delays, obstacles helps reach new profound ideals, new paradigms of thought, and growth in your consciousness. So all of the difficulties you face in your life, all of the challenges you face in your life, all the obstacles you face in your life, they are there because your consciousness needs to change. And as a Kumbha Lagna, this is my experience. So all the struggles in that when Aquarius is in Saturn, that you face, the delays, challenges, and obstacles, when you overcome those obstacles, your consciousness will grow and advance and promote to this new place where you're living in a more paradigm of a more evolved consciousness. So when it comes to Aquarius, the challenges of Saturn are there to help cause the consciousness to grow.
Wonderful.
Now, when we get a little bit into Saturn and its relationship with other Rashis, we're going to talk about the ruling planet of each of the Rashis. And this will also have to do, if one of these Rashis in your Lagna, how you will relate with Saturn karma in general. So first we'll talk about that Saturn relates to the signs Gemini and Virgo through the planet Mercury. Mercury and Saturn are considered friends, or at least I consider them friends, and I've read in different texts that they are considered friends. And so they generally support each other and get along well. And we have a great example later about how Saturn and Mercury relate. But when Saturn is in Gemini or Virgo, it will connect these tests, delays, and challenges of obstacles in one's life to the planet Mercury. And therefore, these delays, challenges, and obstacles will affect the buddhi. Buddhi is Sanskrit for the discretionary factor of our consciousness. That's what analyzes, communicates, or understands our intellectual or our rational mind. So because when Saturn is relating to Gemini or Virgo, it will be affecting the buddhi, which is our discretion or our intellect. So therefore, these tests and challenges and delays, it affects our intellect, our discrimination, our discretion, our communication, our expression, and our rational or logical aspect of our consciousness. Now, Saturn's karma or comfortability or dignity in Gemini and Virgo is generally considered among the more favorable because Saturn relates pretty well to Mercury. And so one of the things that this shows over the course of the whole lifetime, especially in Saturn returns, and if Saturn is in Sati Sati in one of these signs as well for you, that this shows a great maturity of the consciousness and the integration of the pragmatic, which is if it works, and the ideal, which is the highest version of something, with the logical and the rational. And another way that I kind of simply like to describe this energy is when Saturn's karma is working with Mercury, it really helps us think before we act. Saturn relates to the sign Taurus because we already discussed its exaltation in Libra. Saturn relates to the sign Taurus through the planet Venus. And like Mercury, Venus and Saturn are considered friends. And when it comes to Saturn's friends, I only consider Mercury and Venus to really be the true friends of Saturn. And so Venus and Taurus are another energy in which Saturn will be fairly comfortable with and get along with fairly well. And I've seen this have profound auspicious results in a lot of charts of my clients, especially materially or monetarily. When Saturn is in Taurus, it connects all of these tests, delays, challenges, and obstacles of Saturn to the planet Venus. Therefore, these tests, challenges, and obstacles will show up in wealth, money in our lives, love and romance, pleasure, happiness, the material world, possessions, stability, security, and our attachments. So the tests, delays, and challenges will be manifesting in these different areas of life and will be influencing these areas. So even though it can be beneficial, it can also be challenging in that wealth and love and romance have these challenges, delays, and obstacles attached to them. But because Saturn's in a positive dignity in Libra and Taurus, the enduring or overcoming of these challenges usually will give great wealth and great romance. And usually I see people with Saturn and Taurus either at the end of their Saturn Mahadasha or end of their Saturn return doing very, very well for themselves on the physical realm.
Yes, there was a question, Kṣaṇāti,
yes,
that when this will activate, one person asked, particularly of Shanidev in Taurus. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, but as this planet delays but not deny, we can be sure that it will not be in the beginning of one's life journey. Yeah?
Yes, it will not be in the beginning of one's life journey. And then in terms of the timing of it, it would be most auspicious to receive the rewards towards the end of the Saturn Mahadasha, the end of the Saturishis, or the end of the Saturn return. So yes, it will be something, especially if someone is a Saturn Taurus Lagna, it'll be something that will be delayed throughout the life. But it has a strong potential to influence its rewards in Saturn and Taurus when Saturn is transiting Taurus, as well as if someone's so if someone has Saturn in Taurus and Saturn transits that Taurus towards the end of that return, it should show great rewards. But in the beginning, it might show a lot of hard work. And it's like kind of like someone who works really, really, really hard, hours and hours and hours and hours, and then finally they get that raise they were looking for.
Great.
Yeah.
Sure, yes.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about Sagittarius already, but I'll just talk a little bit about how Saturn relates to these Jupiter signs, or how Saturn relates to the planet Jupiter. Now, Saturn relates to the signs Sagittarius and Pisces through the planet Jupiter. Jupiter are considered neutral. Well, some astrologers I've heard say they were friends, and some astrologers I have said they are enemy, but just based on their nature, and my understanding is that they have a neutral relationship to each other, which means they both are gurus and they both respect and honor each other as gurus, but the way that they manifest their teachings is profoundly different. So it's like two people that respect each other, but don't necessarily get along.
Right. Well said.
And so there's a mixed effect there. Therefore, the tests, delays, and challenges one manifest when dealing with Saturn in a Jupiter sign is that it will affect your morals, your ethics, your values, your principles, your wisdom, your higher education, spiritual, mystical, or religious beliefs, honoring of one's gurus and teachers, as well as the realization of our own guru or highest self. So when these tests, delays, and challenges are so deeply connected to what we believe in terms of morals and ethics and our spiritual beliefs, it can be very challenging, especially when there's delays and challenge and obstacles. So when Saturn is in Sagittarius, Saturn is in Pisces, it can show a delay in the realization of your inner guru. It will also show that through your work with Saturn, you can have the realization of your highest potential. But it might show a delay of that energy, like we mentioned, unless there is a Saturn return or a Saturn Mahadasha period, that there's a delay into the full realization of one's own higher self or inner guru, which that's the potential.
Wonderful.
That can be challenging. This can be a challenging karma. But as I mentioned, it's considered neutral because usually the spiritual reward is great when Jupiter and Saturn are relating to each other. And so, as I mentioned, when Saturn is in Sagittarius or Pisces, it shows great moral and ethical in Sagittarius, and in Pisces, great spiritual growth and wisdom when we pass these tests, challenges, and adversities in our lives.
Wonderful.
Saturn relates to the sign Scorpio through the planet Mars. And we talked a little bit about how Saturn relates to Aries, and it's debilitated. And Saturn relates to Mars as about as a great as enemy as you could be. So, and this is common sometimes where there's Saturn and Mars karma, but the reason that Saturn is debilitated in Aries is because Mars and Saturn, they just don't get along. They're not friendly. They don't act in a friendly relationship with each other. And part of the reason that this is, and this is philosophical, I didn't really write about this, but Mars is the planet of action, energy, power, strength, support, getting things done, advancement, the need to do things, the need to have energy, the need to have accomplished. And Saturn is the planet that delays. So it's like having someone running in place as fast as they can, but there's a rope tied around them, and Saturn's just holding them there, and they're just running there, and they're exhausting themselves, and Saturn's like, you're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. So it's a really difficult energy in that there's this push to go and energy, but at the same time, the delay is so powerful, and it's just like this push and shove that can be very uncomfortable. But Saturn is a little happier in Scorpio than it is in Aries because Scorpio is more curious, more investigative, more mystical. So a little more favorable to have Saturn in Scorpio than Aries, but still particularly challenging.
In that sense, there was also a question you might can answer, yeah? What if in the one it is debilitated and in the Navamsha going to be at least neutral or not debilitated? So what kind of a mixture blend this gonna give?
Yeah, great example of how to understand the strength of Saturn through the use of the Navamsha. But in terms of, so if Saturn is debilitated in the birth chart,
Rashi.
in the
Yes.
Rashi, but is exalted in the Navamsha, it's kind of like having a Saturn that is debilitated but retrograde in the birth chart. So in a sense, the Navamsha is going to help remove some of the malefic nature of that debilitated Saturn. So I would say that if Saturn is debilitated in the Rashi and exalted in the Navamsha, that will help create a lot more of a beneficial energy for Saturn. But if Saturn is neutral or in an enemy position in the Navamsha, it's certainly not going to help the condition. If Saturn is in its own sign or a friend sign in the Navamsha, maybe it will help the condition partially. But I really think when it comes to a debilitation, the greatest help you're going to get is an exaltation in the Navamsha.
Thank you very much. I think and I hope
Good
it's going to be
answer.
answered.
What's that?
I
Good
think
answer.
and I hope that is going to got answered, that question.
Uh-huh. What do you mean?
She
That
means
was
that
it was a question from the audience,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and you answered it.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that
Yes.
it feels like it's been answered.
yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, as I mentioned with Mars, so when Saturn is in Scorpio, and this will manifest in Aries too, but we're looking at it as more from a planetary relationship, but this is also of Scorpio as your Lugna, for example, that the test, delays, and challenges and obstacles that relate to Saturn, well, they're going to affect your energy. They're going to affect your ability to be action-oriented. They're going to be affect your ability to have support and welfare and passion and enthusiasm in your life. They may limit your strength or your courage. So these are challenging karmas and these are malefic karmas in which when Saturn is relating to Scorpio or Saturn is in Scorpio, these people struggle very often with issues of having enough energy. Now, at times they can be full of energy, but at other times they can be so dead like a zombie. And this is because that the Saturn, like I said, they're running in place and there's a rope around them. So they're just going to exhaust themselves. But if they were to take one step at a time, then Saturn might give them a little rope. But in any case, yeah, it's a difficult karma when Saturn is in Scorpio, and it usually affects the energy greatly, and the support of and support, because in the ancient text, Mars is the planet which bears welfare. So let's say Saturn is in your 4th house in Scorpio, you don't have the support of your mother. Let's say if Saturn is in Scorpio of the 7th house, you don't have the support you need from your partner, so on and so forth. It can be challenging in that way.
Right.
Okay, 2 more Rashis that I wanted to discuss and how Saturn relates to these planets. Saturn relates to the sign Leo through the sun. This is a particularly, much like Mars, malefic or difficult friendship. Even though the sun is friends with anyone, Saturn isn't that friendly with the sun. And so from Saturn's perspective, the sun is its enemy, but the sun is better than that. But there's in the sutra that we looked at, and I'm just going to go back to it for a second because it's very profound in understanding the energy here. Is as one of the descriptions here, as you can see the translation about Saturn, is that Saturn, he can even put his shadow over the glorious sun. And I've seen many different translations of this, but the basic idea is that Saturn is the son of the sun, but that Saturn's shadow or the darkness of Saturn is so great that even its darkness has the power to cover the light of the sun. And this is from an ancient sutra, and it really points at the malefic relationship between these two planets, or the troublesome relationship of how the sun and Saturn will relate to each other, because the darkness of Saturn can really cover over the light of the sun, as mentioned in the ancient text. Therefore, when Saturn is in Leo, or Saturn is conjunct with the sun, or if we're a Leo Lugna, our karmas with Saturn, our tests, delays, challenges, and obstacles with Saturn, they will affect our soul's direction. They will affect our soul's satisfaction, our soul's fulfillment, our alignment to our soul's potential. Because the sun is the soul's direction, the Atma direction, and also it will affect our self-understanding, confidence, power, and leadership capabilities. because these are really concentrated within Leo. But the basic idea here is that the shadow of Saturn is covering over the sun so that the individual can't shine the way that they really would like to, or that the darkness or the sadness or the delay or the obstacle or the challenge, it is so concentrated in their life that they might not get to shine in the beautiful way that every individual deserves to. Now, of course, usually there's karma in a chart that eventually, during a sun period, sun Saturn, and these things like this, that the sun will come out and shine, and the sun will eventually come out to shine. But when the sun is relating to Saturn, it can show a lot of challenges into the full realization or delays of one's potential or one's happiness or one's direction. The last sign that we're going to discuss here is Cancer, and how Saturn relates to Cancer. And Cancer is ruled by the planet Moon. Moon and Saturn also do not get along that well, and is generally considered a difficult and challenging relationship. Now, because the Moon rules the manas, or the mind, the emotions, intuitions, feelings, family, and home life, these are how Saturn's karmas will manifest. So there can be delays, challenges, and obstacles, and our karmas with Saturn are going to be particularly challenging on the mental and emotional. So people who have Saturn in Cancer are some of the people that I have the most compassion for, or when Cancer lagnas are going through a Saturn period or time, because the challenges are going to be so hard on their mind and their emotion. And so they are experiencing a great amount of mental and emotional suffering from these challenges. Their emotions are depressed or sad, or there can be stagnation or feelings of lack of self-happiness, either momentary or lasting depressions. And then also the karmas can affect the family and home life, as these are big indications for Cancer and Lagna as well. This is considered a malefic or challenging karma that is especially difficult on our mental and our emotional aspect. And I have a special place in my heart for those who have strong Cancer and have to deal with Saturn karma, because it seems to really, really weigh on them more than others sometimes. So even though Saturn is debilitated in Aries, that sometimes I feel more compassionate for the suffering that goes on when Saturn is in Cancer, because these people really struggle.
Yeah, because it's a very nurturing sign. And certainly they will have no reward for all what they give.
Yeah.
Because, yeah,
exactly.
Saturn denies that sort of. So that's why they suffer.
Exactly. And
I believe.
That's beautifully put. And it's like everyone I've met or done a reading for that has Saturn and Cancer, I always up feeling special amount of compassion for them, for that reason.
Right.
So we've discussed how karma of Saturn is. We discussed general karma of Saturn. We discussed how Saturn relates based on its different dignities. And so we have a strong understanding of how Saturn's karma manifests. And I really think we did a nice job of discussing the challenges, because Saturn is challenge and adversity. But we also discussed how beautiful Saturn is in the rewards of overcoming those challenges, and that we can only truly reach our potential or our virtue in our life through overcoming these challenges. And so when it comes to the Saturn karma, it is one of the main karmas that you want to face head on, that you do never want to run away from, because the suffering that comes when we run away from these karmas, A, the karma always follows us, and B, that we are never going to grow as long as we are run away from our karma with Saturn. So now I'd like to focus on some suggestions from how I've learned from different teachers, how to improve our karma with Saturn. Then we'll look at some great examples of how to improve karma with Saturn from different people in the community. And we can really start to focus on how we can achieve these aims of life and improve the quality of our life because of these aspects.
Wonderful.
So I personally...
And just
please.
1 second, please. Maybe we're going to go through few of the questions, because just the ones that are pending before we go to this beautiful next topic.
Okay.
Let's say 5 minutes.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Fun.
If you are ready.
Yes.
That is wonderful. So people would like to know also the effects if Saturn is a Yogaraka planet, like it is said for Libra, I believe. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How will this have any particular effect?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to think about that for a little bit. What are your thoughts on that, Inge?
Well, Yogaraka planet means it is a lord of an angle and of a trine, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So it has a great value in that chart, yeah? But in my eyes, it also don't play out always in the expected ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what...
on the placement, yes, and the aspects and the overall, and sure.
Yes.
It's not black and white. There are many aspects to it.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult question to answer in general. I mean, in general, we can answer it. Yogacaraka planets are the best planets in the chart. And if they're well placed, that's certainly a blessing.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. What I was kind of feeling about that is when a planet Yogacaraka, a planet is in a Kendra or a trine, it gives prominence to that planet. It gives prominence to that planet in terms of the whole life's karma. And the 4 main Kendras in particular are going to show the main areas of life. And so when Saturn has emphasis in a Kendra or a trine, it will give strength to that planet, especially when Saturn is in the 10th house, has significator, Capricorn. So it like how we discussed earlier, when Saturn is exalted, yes, it will have an exalted effect in that the achievement or success of overcoming your adversity will be great. I would say this is a similar kind of comparison in the Yogacaraka, where the karma with the Saturn is emphasized, but again, the dignity has to be taken into a place, but the karma is emphasized, which means one's karma with Saturn will be emphasized over your karmas or relationships with the other planets.
Right.
Yeah, but it still has to do with the dignity. If Saturn is in the 10th house exalted, you're going to have a very successful career. If Saturn is debilitated in the 5th house, you may never have children.
Yes, of course, those houses will suffer as well.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So just again, like Bettina mentioned, and it's very specific to its position and dignity, but in general, if it's in a Kendra or trine, it will emphasize its prominence in your lifetime.
Sure.
Great. And some people asking about the aspects of Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
Like usually planets have the oppositional aspect, the 7th.
Oh yeah.
Shani, it comes to 3rd, 7th, and 10th aspect.
3, 7,
what will be the difference, let's say? Shani sit into a particular house that we have discussed.
Mm-hmm.
In different signs, at least we have discussed. But now he's looking towards other signs.
Yeah. I think I understand the question. So Saturn will act from its position of its original dignity in its glance on the other houses that it's aspecting, the regular 7 and 3, 7, 10. So when Saturn is aspecting these things, it is aspecting them based on the dignity of the sign that it's in. So if Saturn is exalted, it will be glancing or viewing its aspects from a position of exaltation.
Sure, yes.
But if it's debilitated, it will be putting a debilitated effect on those house, which it is aspecting or glances at as well. Although I do believe that the aspect, well, there's a full aspect, which is 100% aspect, but a lot of the other aspects, there's 50% aspects and 25% aspects. And these things, it's not gonna necessarily bring as much of the dignity with it, but the complete aspects bring the full dignity to the house it is looking at.
Right. How about the difference in aspects from, let's say, okay, in opposition, how about the 3rd and the 10th aspect? Would you differ between them?
Yeah. I think I know in the writings it describes that one of the aspects is 100% and then another one of the aspects is 75%. I think that 3, 7, 10 for Saturn is 100% aspect.
It's 100%, yes.
And that the 7th house is a 50% aspect.
Yeah, I'm talking in terms of the quality of the aspect. So a 3rd aspect may have more self-will.
Yeah.
And the 10th aspect being different from that.
Yeah. I was just thinking in terms of strength, how the 3rd, 7th, and 10th aspect, those will be have the full effect of the dignity, while the 7th aspect will have more to do with maybe the dignity of the 7th house. But like you mentioned, the houses that are aspecting, those aspects will have influences. So if Saturn is that what you mean? So that if Saturn is having an aspect of the 3rd, it might be influencing communication, or is that the question?
Yeah, not onto the 3rd house, but it's the 3rd aspect. Well, the 3rd from Saturn in that case, yes.
Yeah.
The 3rd from Saturn versus the 10th from Saturn.
Yeah.
Or the 7th being probably relationship related, depending.
Yeah, exactly. So whichever house it is aspecting at, in addition to the dignity of that it'll be influencing it with, it'll also be influencing the baba of that house.
Yes, sure. Yeah. Very well. Okay. Any other questions, Inga, or should we continue?
There are more questions, but they will be covered partly in the following presentation. So I think for time being, we continue with the presentation and see if the questions remain. And the audience can ask it again, if possible.
Okay, great. Yeah. And if any question like seems really like interesting that pops up, just let me know and we can look into it.
Brilliant.
So now we're getting into the improvement of the Saturn karma. Now that we're understanding a little bit of how the karma manifests, I believe that we can honor Shani every day. There's never a bad day to honor Shani, especially if you're a Capricorn or Aquarius, Lagna. Your Saturn is in Capricorn or Aquarius. You're in Saturn Mahadasha, Sati Sati, Saturn return. It's never a bad day to honor Saturn. But Shani Deva rules Saturday, and so that is why I picked Saturday to do this session today, and why we did the opening chant today to Saturn, because Saturday, above the other days, is the most auspicious day to honor Saturn. Now, we honor Shani Dev by wearing the colors blue and black, as mentioned in the ancient astrological text. But in my study of astronomy, I found that when the sun glances its light on Saturn, it creates a purple light. So it is also very auspicious to wear purple in honor of Saturn. Black, blue, purple, all very good in honoring Saturn Shani Deva. We honored Shani Deva through the traditional Shani mantra. There are many different Shani mantras. I commonly use the one that we did earlier in our session today, and I'll usually read the full sutra 3, 5, maybe 10 times, and then repeat the last line, which is the seed sound or the tantric mantra, 108 times. And really, whether you prefer the seed sound or the tantric mantra, that's up to, what is your preference. I prefer the tantric mantra. It gives me a real vibration of the energy, but I think 108 repetitions of the tantric mantra after a repetition of the sutra is highly auspicious. And it is most auspicious when you have a traditional Saturn yantra, gold-plated Saturn yantra that you can have on your altar when you're performing the Saturn mantra. This is said to magnify the expression of the prayer up to 1,000 times. So for whatever symbolic or metaphoric value that is worth, it is highly beneficial to perform the Shani mantra in front of a Shani yantra on a Saturday for the most auspicious energies.
Wonderful.
Oh, and specifically in terms of time, if you have a prashna or some kind of program that lets you see the chart, it is highly beneficial for you to perform the Shani mantra when Shani is transiting your lagna or your moon.
Okay. How about Shani Hora?
Also fantastic.
Good.
Yeah. So these are going a little bit over some different recommendations, and this we're going to talk about for a little bit because it's controversial and there's a lot of debate around it. Is gemstones when it comes for Saturn, and I've spent a lot of time researching this, and I want to get the different panelists' beliefs and their thoughts around these things. But first, I'll discuss a little bit about my thoughts or opinions as relates to the Saturn gemstones and when it may or may not be auspicious to wear them. We honor the Shani Dev by wearing the gemstone blue sapphire. And for a less expensive gem, amethyst is also highly recommended. And iron is the metal for Saturn, but most of the jewelers I know don't know how to set gems in iron or find it extremely difficult to do. So I usually recommend silver or gold, depending on the ruler of the sign of what Saturn is in. So if Saturn is in a Jupiter sign, I might recommend a gold setting. If Saturn is in a Venus sign, I might recommend a silver setting, so on and so forth. But the two gems that I like the most for Saturn are blue sapphire and amethyst. And amethyst is great when you want to dip your toes in the water of working with gemstones and improving your karma with Saturn, because it's a very strong gem for Saturn, but it's not as close to as strong as a true pure blue sapphire. So it's a great way of going in the shallow end of the pool when working with gemstones and your karma with Saturn. And here I have an amethyst gemstone Sanity setting. Thank you.
Very nice. That's a great point, yes.
So I believe that the general etiquette is that when it comes to recommending gemstones, right hands for a man and left hands for a female. But I don't believe necessarily, and that's because left is lunar or the moon, which is feminine, and the right is masculine or solar, which is the sun, Ida and Pingala, so on and so forth. But sometimes I don't believe that the best thing we can do is make our decision based on gender differences. So I think of it sometimes when we take gender out of it and we take etiquette out of it and try to look at men and women as maybe the same and think of it more as an energetic. And I believe that when you wear a gem, this is another mode of thinking, because one of the modes of thinking is left hand for female rings, right hand for male rings. Another method of thinking, which has resonated always with me, is that when you wear a gem on the right hand, it increases the overall energy of the planet. Which means if a planet is exalted, then you're only going to be creating an auspicious effect. But if a planet is debilitated, wearing that planet on the right hand can increase the energy of the debilitated effect. So, in a sense, you want to wear gems on your right hand, which you have a positive karmic relationship with, in which you are comfortable increasing their overall energy. Now, on the left hand, and this is just one way of thinking, on the left hand, you wear a gem when you specifically want to decrease only the malefic energies of the gem. So the right hand increases overall energy, and the left hand decreases only the malefic aspects. So on my middle hand here, I have a Rahu Hesonite. And I wear it on my left hand to decrease the malefic effect that Rahu has over me. And this is just my philosophical thinking about it. Now, when you come to working with Saturn gemstones, when you increase the overall energy, now again, some people believe no matter where you wear the gemstone, left or right hand, it's going to increase the energy of that planet. I like to believe that wearing it on the left hand decreases the malefic energy. But anyway, this can't be scientifically proven. So when working with the Saturn gem, when you are increasing the overall energy of Saturn, you are also increasing the amount of adversity, tests, and challenges in your life. So if I ever recommend a blue sapphire or an amethyst to a client, I have a long discussion with them over they really want to fast forward through their karma and work through more. Because when you are wearing a blue sapphire gem, you are encouraging more tests, more challenges, more obstacles. Now, it's really a gift if someone is extremely devoted to their spiritual path and wants to accelerate their karma and wants to work through all of these things and is ready to deal with all of the tests and challenges that increasing the power of Saturn might bring.
Right.
On the other hand, if you're fine, if you're happy in your life, and you don't necessarily want to increase the amount of challenges or difficulties in your life, you may not want to wear a Saturn gem. So I always respect the people who wear the Saturn gem because I see it as someone who is willing to face their karma, look at their karma, and if possible, go through their karma in an accelerated fashion. But that is not fun, and that is not easy. So wearing a Saturn gemstone has a malefic effect in that it is increasing the amount of the Saturn karma that you have, which means you might be able to go through it quicker, but that will make it more concentrated and more challenging for a certain period of time. And that is why, unless you're a Kumbha or Capricorn Lagna or in a Saturn Mahadasha, unless those are the conditions, I will very rarely recommend a Saturn gemstone. But again, I mentioned that if you do wear the gemstone on the left hand, there are different gemstone philosophers who believe it only decreases the malefic energy. So if you are concerned about the malefic energy of Saturn when you're wearing a gemstone, then perhaps try wearing it on the left hand to help decrease the malefic energies. But again, these are just some different theories. What do Inge and Bettina, what do you think about Saturn gemstones?
Difficult topic.
Yes. In my eyes, too, it is a controversial point. And there are so many opinions as there are people, you know. I have seen the people for whom, like a Libra Lagna, with Saturn in good dignity and Mahadasha coming, might wear one sapphire ring. But in my eyes, it is, you have to be strong to cope with these powers, because anyhow it will be a difficult and challenging, let's not say difficult, but challenging time in which you have to endure maybe a lot of different facts of life. So, and that sapphire might give you the power to endure it more better.
Beautiful.
But look, it is a try and nothing is absolute. So I would, for example, not advise a sapphire ring where Saturn is not in good dignity to strengthen it in general.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, because then you're strengthening the bala of the malefic karma.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say, now of course, if that person has debilitated Saturn and maybe they're a monk, then I will maybe consider it, because then they are absolutely dedicated to their going through their karma and nothing else. But as far as us human beings go, that you don't want to I agree with that you don't necessarily want to increase the potency of the malefic karma. Right.
Because in this world, we have to function also. We have to pay our rent. We have to, we have to function. We might have families, husbands, wife, children, aunts, uncles. And our own personal karma is one thing, but they all live with us. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So we are not only ourselves.
Yeah.
So in the case of a monk, anyhow, he is ready for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So
beautiful. Yeah. So, it's kind of a topic that's open to interpretation, but I think that before getting a Saturn gemstone, it is going to be helpful to get a professional opinion from an experienced astrologer beforehand.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And one more point is just coming to my brain, and we will come to that point also, is that there are much more better ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Than wearing a very costly gemstone.
Yeah.
Saturn is considered as a Shudra also, yeah? And this gemstone, particularly a blue sapphire, is a very costly thing. It is, yeah?
Yeah.
So it is a controversy.
That's why I recommend amethyst, because it's much less expensive.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah, but also I think that Saturn is about doing things the long way and the sure way and the way that takes the most work. And when you think about gemstones, it's a shortcut. It's a shortcut because you're expecting something you purchased with an amount of money to help your karma. And I wear a lot of gemstones, but I do it because I want to just improve my connection with the planet because I'm an astrologer. But I don't necessarily think of it as improving my karma with the planets, but just sometimes helping with my connection. That's my personal experience.
Right.
That is a good way.
Yeah.
Good explanation.
Thank you. So moving on from the gemstone discussion, Shani Deva is connected to Lord Mahadeva, Shiva, Shankara, Nataraja, Bambola Shiva Nataraja, and Om Namah Shivaya. We honor Shani Deva when we honor Shiva. And there is a extremely profound connection between the karma of Saturn and the energy of God, of Lord Shiva. And these energies, when we honor Saturn, we honor Shiva. When we honor Shiva, we honor Saturn. So just by honoring Shiva, whether through prayer, puja, mantra, or even in our thoughts, how we take reverence and honor of the pure consciousness of Shiva, this is a great way to improve our planetary karma. Our karma with Saturn is our karma with Shiva.
Nice.
In that regard, also it is in classics we can read it, but it is a general opinion that Hanuman Chalisa is recommended, and Hanumanji is a incarnation of Shiva.
Yeah.
So by reading, or for the people who can't read Hindi or Sanskrit, they can at least listen to it.
Yeah, and I think there's a great example through the story of Hanuman and karma of Saturn. I don't think Hanuman could have faced any more adversity than having to save the entire world. But he overcame that adversity and saved Sita Rama. And so, yes, there's a strong connection, I feel, even in the mythology of the energy of Saturn and Shiva and Hanuman are all connected.
Yes, absolutely.
That is the best form of devotion.
Yeah. So I will start by saying that I don't believe in superstition, but I don't believe that some of the things that we are discussing, we can call it superstition, because life is about symbols. And one of the ways that we connect to God, we connect to mysticism, is through symbols. And so when we make symbolic offerings, many people will say, that is superstitious. No, it is a symbol. It is a symbol. And that symbol is a manifestation of spiritual energy. Symbols contain spiritual energy. So I like to just say to the skeptics out there that this is not superstition, but this is symbolism. And this symbolism is a part of spirituality. So we honor Shani Deva by making symbolic offerings through our rituals or our lifestyles. And Shani likes the colors black. So whenever we offer something that comes in a black variety to either an altar or to a black bird or to a black cat, or just this emphasis, the symbolic gesture of offering something that is black, is going to be very symbolically auspicious. And so maybe scientifically we can't measure if we put black sesame, cumin, or poppy seeds on our altar when we pray to Saturn, whether Saturn will really love us for it and improve our karma. But I believe that these symbolic offerings carry energy into the prana body, the energy body, beyond the Sahasrara chakra, into the higher realms and connect to God, because we are making this symbolic offering from the depth of our heart. So even though our logical or our rational brain might not be able to understand why this will improve our karma, because of the power of symbolism, I do believe that when we offer a black seed to Saturn in honor of Saturn is a great symbolic offering, is very powerful. And I would not demean it in any way just because it cannot be scientific. And I also like reading in the book that I have about Saturn remediation, that if you feed a black bird, so feeding any type of black bird is going to be auspicious, as well as giving milk to a black cat. And again, if you're walking down the street and you see or let's say you're at your home and a black cat comes into your front yard, maybe that is Shani Deva saying, here is black cat, will you please feed it some milk? Because it wants you to remember how to honor Shani. So maybe these symbols are also omens of how opportunities where we can improve our relationship to Saturn. So always keep an eye out when you're trying to prove your relationship with Saturn with anything black.
Wonderful.
And I'm wearing all black, as you can see. And my hair is black. So, and it's, just the Saturn has great shadow. The shadow of Saturn is greater than any shadow that exists.
Right.
This was a recommendation from Inge. I want her to discuss a little about, and because I wanted to incorporate iron, because iron is the metal for Saturn, into the recommendation. And so it was mentioned to burn oil in an iron bowl in meditation or puja while asking Shani from the bottom of your heart for forgiveness. Inge, would you like to discuss a little bit about that?
Yes, certainly. In my small view, there's only one point which gonna work for this planet. Of course, all the others, as you mentioned, the seeds and the cats feeding, helping nature is also very, very well. But when it comes to personal terms and to personal life and to our personal karmas, which we all have, that's why we are here, then only one thing will work in my eyes. And this is to ask for forgiveness of all the millions of mistakes which we have made, knowingly and unknowingly, into all our previous existences, and in this existence, of course. And this we can do when we sit down and we light fire into one iron bowl and burn oil. We can do it every day. It is a very small deed with a great effect. I promise.
Beautiful. One of the things that makes me think of is how much humility it takes to do this. And that is maybe why part of the reason it has such a profound effect is because when we get on our knees and ask God or Shani for forgiveness for everything that we have done that has been caused some kind of negative karma, first thing we do is admit that we have done that. We admit that we are human. We admit that we are less than perfect. We admit that we make mistakes, that we have karmic transgressions, that we hurt people. And it takes a great amount of humility to do this. And I think that's maybe why Saturn will receive this so well.
Yes, I think so too. Wonderful.
Probably it is also acknowledgement
Yes,
of our own brain and our own soul, which brings us to this point of recognizing that we are not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that we're not in control.
Yeah. The surrender is so...
Which brings us back to humility.
Yeah.
And in that sense, there are many questions popping up. And it is a question of different animals. All black animals will work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 Regardless if it is an ant or a cat or a crow.
Mm-hmm. Crows are
auspicious.
Yeah.
Crows
are special.
For sure, but it is not easy. They are very intelligent birds. They will not come easily.
You need a scarecrow.
What?
A scarecrow, like a fake,
I understand. Yes.
Yeah, filled with hay. Yeah, they fill the fake scarecrow with hay, and then all the crows come and stand on the scarecrow. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, any animal that is black or I would say is I wouldn't worry too much specifically about which black item you are offering or to which black item is receiving or person or animal. And even go beyond the animals, which is the next point, which I think is the number one thing above all else. Well, actually, I don't know if there's number one thing, but I feel so strongly that this is one of the best things that we can do. And I've read this in multiple books and some of the ancient texts, that we honor Shani by service. Shani is called the servant. And so we honor Shani by allowing ourselves to become a servant. And again, this shows great humility. And particularly, it says to feed or clothe or serve. Feeding and clothing are the two primary. So to offer food or clothes to anyone that is homeless, hungry, doesn't have food, old, sick, diseased, addicted, or disabled. So to pretty much feed, clothe, or serve anyone that is needy, and these are just different categories of people that have needs, that they need support from our community because they have struggle, that this is the greatest way to honor Shani. Because one of the things that it does is, of course, on some metaphysical, spiritual level, Saturn is grateful that we are giving service to the community and will improve our karma. But also, when we begin to do this work, instead of desire, which controls our life, which controls our mind, and desire is control, and control is Saturn, when we begin to do service, we begin to become grateful for everything that we have. We begin to see that these people that we are offering service to, that they are grateful, that they have nothing. And this makes us completely grateful, and it takes away our desire. And this is the greatest freedom. The greatest freedom we can experience is to feel no desire. And to feel the opposite of desire is gratitude or appreciation. And so through this act of service, we rid ourselves of desire, and we come into a space of gratitude and appreciation. And this is one of the best ways to improve our karma with Saturn, both in terms of maybe Saturn rewarding us, but even more so making us grateful for what we have, which makes the challenges and adversities and tests that we face a lot more easier, because we see how much more challenge and struggle there is for other people that is so much more difficult than us.
Exactly, that's precisely it.
And one more point
What's that?
comes here, because nothing is forever. By confronting this needy, starving, homeless, old, sick, addicted, we are confronting our own truth as well. Mm-hmm. We will not live forever. We're gonna die one day. This body gonna die. Mm-hmm. It can be sick anytime. It can be without clothes, without home, without everything which we took for granted. Mm-hmm. We take these things for granted, but they are not.
Beautiful.
They can be taken anytime.
Yeah.
And with confronting it, we acknowledge that it can happen to anyone, anytime, also to myself. And I want to help it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it makes me feel also how Shani is related to Lord Yama, or death. Right. Shani is related to the Lord of Death. So yes, it teaches us that, like you mentioned, when there comes a time where we are nothing anymore, you know? And yeah, so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now, the next aspect that I want to discuss is Ayurvedic lifestyle improvements of Saturn karma. Now, when do these most apply? There's a few different places. One, whenever someone is in Saturn Mahadasha. This is when it is most important for Ayurvedic lifestyle improvement of your Saturn karma, as well as Saturishis and the Saturn return. These are going to be the most important times for you to improve your Ayurvedic lifestyle through Saturn. In addition to those time periods, when Saturn is in the 6th house or the 8th house or the Lagna, you are always going to have to worry about how Saturn is affecting your health negative. Therefore, it is important to balance yourself from an Ayurvedic perspective to improve your karma with Saturn. So the placement of Saturn in the 1st, 6th, 8th, or 12th houses, as well as the Saturn Mahadasha, Saturishis, and the Saturn return are all going to be especially important times for you to improve your Ayurvedic relationship with Saturn. Also, astrocartography, and this is the only time I'm going to mention astrocartography today, is that if you are near your Saturn line in your astrocartography, this is so important. I cannot emphasize enough that this is the primary recommendation for those that are living very, very close to their Saturn line, because living close to that Saturn line going to be very challenging on the Vata dosha in one's life. So as I mentioned, Saturn is related to the Ayurvedic dosha Vata, which contains the elements wind, which is Vayu in Sanskrit, and space or ether, which is Akash or Sanskrit. So Saturn has the elements of Vayu and Akash. Vata, the essential dosha, contains certain qualities or gunas. And so when we're dealing with negative health effects from Saturn, they're usually related to these qualities of Vata. So these are the aggravations or the negative karmic consequences that Saturn can have on our health, is a too much accumulation or an excess of these essential qualities or gunas. This includes cold, which is called hema in Sanskrit, too much cold in the body. Lagu, which is light, that the body is too light. Dry, which is ruksha, dry quality in the body. Rough, kara, rough quality of the body. Mobile, chala, which is the hyperactive quality of the body, which is the inability to be still. Subtle, which is sukshma quality, which is the subtle quality. This is related for subtle energy, which is that we're easily influenced by external stimuli. And then clear, which is Vishada guna, is also contained within Vata. And this is when someone is like airy or daydreaming or not speaking clearly or not speaking in full sentences. They possess too much clear quality. Therefore, when dealing with difficult challenges or karmas specific to Saturn, it is especially important to the health to balance these doshas of Vata, the Vata dosha, and therefore all of these gunas that are qualities of Vata also have to be balanced as well. From an Ayurvedic perspective, every guna has an opposite. And so in order to bring balance to health karma as relates to Saturn and the Vata dosha in general, we have to emphasize the gunas which are opposite of Vata and try to reduce the qualities which are similar to Vata. So the qualities which are opposite to Vata, which are qualities that you are going to want to increase into your life, which means qualities in your food, qualities in your lifestyle, qualities of the herbs that you might be taking, that these are the qualities that are going to help bring balance to difficult Saturn karma from an Ayurvedic perspective. So you are going to want to increase these qualities when you're really struggling with Saturn health karma. This includes heavy, which is guru in Sanskrit, hot, which is ushna, oily, which is snigdha, soft, which is mrudu, stable or static, which is stira, gross or grand, which is stula, and cloudy, which is pichila. These are the essential gunas which will bring balance to Saturn karma from an Ayurvedic perspective, and will bring balance to the Vata dosha, which is the main thing that suffers when it comes to Saturn karma. And so I'm not going to recommend specific herbs because each individual has a unique constitution, birth constitution, and everyone has a current state of their constitution. And I can't read everyone's pulse and know which herbs to recommend right now. But in general, these Vata pacifying herbs, or herbs that are specifically used to pacify the Vata dosha, are going to be very beneficial in times where Saturn karma is affecting our health or our mind or our body in a negative way. And this might include ashwagandha, vidari, jadamumsi, tagar, kapikachu, which is also called atmagupta. All of these are just some examples of herbs which will be really beneficial in helping balance us from the sufferings of Saturn and from the sufferings of Vata dosha. It is also encouraged when dealing with Saturn karma because of the Vata dosha to do daily abhyanga, or self-oil massage with sesame oil, which is the heating oil. Anyway, all of these kind of Vata pacifying techniques and dinacharya are going to be very beneficial from a health perspective with people suffering from Saturn-related karmas.
Wonderful. Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
Of course.
That is a very big topic.
Yes.
In fact,
very big.
On its own.
Hmm.
To balance the doshas. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason, this is philosophical, but it's also based on Dr. Laud's teaching, is the reason that Saturn is connected to Lord Yama, and that Saturn is also the primary planet which is associated with death. The reason for this is because the Saturn rules the Vata dosha. And according to Ayurveda, that Vata dosha rules 60% of disease. So 60% of disease is ruled by Vata dosha, 20% by Pitta dosha, and 20% by Kapha dosha. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, the vast majority of death is primarily caused by the Vata dosha. So that really death cannot occur without some aggravation of the Vata dosha. And it's usually once the Vata gets provoked that it pushes the Pitta or Kapha, which really causes these kind of horrible fatal diseases. But it is usually Vata which is the trigger that starts the disease process. And that is why Saturn and Vata, if they're kept in pacification from an Ayurvedic perspective, it can really help with the longevity of the life, help add some years to your life.
In that regard,
wow.
It is a wonderful point. In that regard, what are your thoughts about pranayama?
Mm-hmm. Yes, great. Pranayamas for Saturn. So pranayama is one of the most amazing things that you can do for Saturn. If you're struggling with Saturn karma or Saturn-related difficulties, you want to do pranayamas that are specifically going to pacify the Vata dosha. And so I have 3 pranayamas, which are specifically, I'm so happy you asked because I love this. I have 3 pranayamas that are specifically important for improving your karma with Saturn and healing your Vata dosha. So these will be very auspicious to be employed during times when the Saturn karma is specific. The first pranayama has 2 varieties. It is either called Nadi Shodhana or Anuloma Viloma. It's alternate nostril breathing, but there are 2 versions of it. But pretty much your hand is like this, and you put your thumb on your right nostril and your ring finger on your left nostril, but you're going to leave it hanging. And what you do is you close off the right nostril and you inhale slowly through the open nostril. Then you plug the left nostril and exhale out the right nostril. Then you plug the right nostril with the thumb and you inhale through the left nostril. Then you plug the left nostril with the ring finger and exhale with the right nostril. And you do this at a slow pace of maybe 2 sets of 10 repetitions. And this is called Nadi Shodhana. And this is when Vata is very aggravated, this is more recommended because it is a gentle, graceful, patient pranayama. And because of the alternate nostril, it helped balance Ida and Pingala, and therefore Sushumna flows more greatly. So you're helping balance the left and the right channels of the body. Now, there's also a second version of that pranayama with someone who is a little more experienced, maybe not as aggravated in the Vata dosha, which is called Anuloma Viloma, which is a more forceful version of this breath. It is done the same way, but it is more forceful. So it'll look something like this. So the difference between the two is that the one is rather gentle and that one is rather more intense. And I recommend starting with the gentle one if you're unfamiliar with the breath. This is a very Vata balancing, and it helps balance the left and right side, the channels of the body. So very good for Saturn karma. The next pranayama that I think is fantastic for the Vata dosha, and I love this pranayama in general because it opens our third eye, but it is extremely calming to the mobile or the hyperactive aspect of the Vata dosha. So if someone is like shaking and nervous and anxious, this is going to be the best pranayama for them because it really helps them process that energy out. And this is going to be a really profound pranayama, which is the bee's breath or Brahmari. And in order to do the bee's breath or the Brahmari, what you're first going to do is you're going to take your Jupiter finger on both hands and you're going to connect them to your third eye. Then you're going to take your Saturn finger on each hand and you are going to put it on the inside of your eye. Then you see that this finger goes on the marma point, your ring finger, at the base of your nose, and the pinky shall fall to your lip. Your thumbs are going to plug your ears. And since I have headphones on, I'm just going to take them off so I can quickly show you this pranayama.
Great.
So you're holding your breath, holding the hand position, and doing a high-pitched bees sound to your third eye chakra. So yes, this is the bee's breath or Brahmari pranayama, and it is opening of the third eye and very calming to the nervous system.
Wonderful.
Very good. So by balancing the breath, we will balance our life force and Vata dosha.
Yeah, that generally Vata Prakriti people and those suffering with the Vata dosha have a much higher breath rate than other people. And Dr. Lad says the more breaths you have per minute, the earlier you will die.
Yes.
Certainly.
So by controlling our breath here, we control the Vata dosha and eventually help us have more breaths for our whole life.
Sure. Wonderful.
The last one I'll just quickly do. This one, because Vata has trouble with feeling strong, confident, powerful. Like there sometimes can be a shyness. So this is called the victory or the celebratory breath, and it's called Ujjayi. And so what you're going to do is you're going to shoot your hand up in the sky as you make a high-pitched celebratory noise, and it's going to sound a little strange. Once the noise is complete, you close the right nostril, and exhale out the left. So I'll just do 2 so you get the understanding. And that one you might want to do alone because people might look. One time I was at the airport doing that, and when I opened my eyes, 10 people were staring at me. Yeah. But that's really good for the confidence, the power, and the shyness and the lack of comfort that can come with the Vata dosha.
Confidence, I can understand when you stand on the airport and after that you don't feel shy anymore, yeah?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of flying, so yeah. So moving away from the Ayurvedic, but that was so exciting. I love pranayama. And just from doing those pranayamas, I now feel a little blissful condition.
Rejuvenated, yeah?
Yeah. I guess I was a little nervous before we started today. So, lifestyle improvement, and these are kind of ways of living or ways of thinking or ways that we can live our life that may improve our relationship with Saturn, that may improve our karma with Saturn. Now, Shani manifests its karma through tests, delays, challenges, and obstacles in order for our karma to improve. So I believe we can improve our karma with Saturn by challenging ourselves, just like Shani Deva does. So maybe if we challenge ourselves, just like Shani does, that Shani won't need to be quite so hard on us. So Saturn karma improves when we employ discipline, focus, order, structure, method, order, determination, and perseverance in our lives. So whenever we're embodying these qualities, our relationship with Saturn is improving. The condition is happy because these are qualities that Saturn has, that Saturn is helping us to grow within ourselves. Now, Saturn, as we mentioned, is known Shanaishcharya, which points it as a slow-moving and a slow-working planet. And many astrologers say the number one thing that you can do for Shani is to be patient. So in our karmic relationship with Shani, our ability to be patient or slow down, take it easy, is one of the primary karmas or lessons that is going to help and that Saturn wants to teach us with. So when we can slow down and be patient, surrender our desire, surrender our time for what God wants, or is God's time, or is Saturn's time, however you want to think about it. This ability to slow down and be patient and wait for when God gives us what we're ready for is one of the primary things that we can do through our lifestyle to improve our karma with Saturn. Therefore, in order to improve our karma, one of the best things that we can do is test our own patience in every mechanism an aspect of life. So sometimes I like to tell my clients that a great way that they can do this, and you can do this on a Saturday, but you can do this on any day, is to create a list. And what this list does is the list is to challenge your own patience. So everything on this checklist is something that you don't want to do. Everything on this checklist is something that you know will make you feel impatient. But you are testing your own patience, because that is the only way to become more patient. And if you can test your own more patience and become patient on your own drive, then maybe the karma with Saturn around patience won't be so malefic. So one of the ways that we can challenge our own patience is to create this list of challenging our own patience. And everyone's patience is challenged by different ways. But some examples I like to use are appointments where you have to wait in the waiting room, mundane tasks like cleaning, doing the laundry, going to the grocery store, anything that you just kind of mundane, you don't really feel like doing. Being in traffic is really test your patience. Doing your taxes, bills, any kind of paperwork, doing any kind of work that you know that you need to do but you don't really feel like doing. Sometimes even people test our patience, which is why we can't talk to certain people for certain periods of time, because they really test us. Well, in honor of Saturn, you should try to have a 1-hour conversation with this person that is just testing your patience. This is a great way to be able to cope and improve the condition of patience within our lives. And that way I feel like it's possible, if we really are becoming patient and doing everything we can to become patient, then Saturn will reward us versus cause us more challenge.
Wow, this is priceless, Kṣaṇāti. I love this, really.
Thank you so much.
That's so wonderful and so true. Absolutely, definitely.
Thank you so much, Bettina.
Great, great, great insight.
So in addition to patience, which is the primary, Saturn is also known, as we mentioned, to test our humility, acceptance, and our obsession with control. Therefore, similar to the patience test that I mentioned, we can improve our karma by self-testing in general, and self-testing our ability to be humble, to be accepting, and to be in control. So it might be beneficial. Saturn will be working with everyone on patience. But let's say that someone has a strong karma with Saturn, but they're already a patient person. Well, odds are that Saturn is going to be working with them on humility, acceptance, or their obsession with control. So sometimes it might be beneficial to create a list to test one's humility. And a great way to test one's humility is to create a list of service-oriented things, or things that you can do in which you will receive no recognition, praise, or reward. So the humility list is to create a list of things that you can do to help people, especially the needy, homeless, drug addicted, sick. But it's important that you receive no recognition for your actions. So humility is when we're doing something, but we don't feel any need to be received or honored, or even receiving praise for what we do. So to make a list of things that are positive to do, and to, at the same time, not be seeking any kind of recognition or reward for that service.
Wow.
Practicing detachment, no?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And another way to test one's humility is to do something that you're not particularly good at. This is a great way to test one's humility. And when we do something that we're not particularly good at, we improve. But when we realize we're doing something that we're not good at, the ego is humbled. It pushes us in a position of humility, because we're only able to do something in a mediocre way, because we're not necessarily skilled at it. So also helpful in terms of working with our humility and Saturn is to try to do things and improve yourself in things that you are bad or neutral at.
Wow. It's fantastic, yes.
Yeah. So, like, I'm horrible at basketball. I probably make the shot 1 out of 10 times, and uh, this is every time I play basketball, my ego is humbled because I feel like I'm trying, but I'm just not good at this, and so it can be very helpful for the humility to continue to work on things that you do not consider yourself good at.
Yes. Wow. That was insightful.
Thank you. Okay, so this is our last lifestyle improvement suggestion, and then I have some examples that I want to get to.
Okay.
But Saturn also works on our acceptance, and we can improve our karma with Saturn by self-testing our ability to accept situations, circumstances, people that are challenging or difficult to accept. And I give this great example of someone who is a strong believer in a political party. In America, we have Republican and we have Democrat. We have two political parties. Now, if you are a strong believer in one party, most likely it is impossible for you to accept the beliefs and the existence of the other party. And this is one of the things that is very common in my country right now. I don't like getting into politics, but I did not vote for Donald Trump, and I do not want him to be my president. But do I believe that there is growth in me accepting this, which is different than me, which is hard for me to accept, which I don't want to accept? Yes, I do. And so one of the ways that we can grow in our acceptance is no matter what belief we have, no matter how strongly we believe something, if we can interact with or put ourselves in the situations with people or circumstances that are the opposite to those beliefs and that we can accept them, this is another way that we can really improve our karma with Saturn. It does not mean that you have to agree. You do not have to agree, but you have to accept. And by this acceptance of things that are impossible to accept causes a great amount of Saturn-like growth inside of us. And generally, Saturn will force us to accept things which we have no choice over. And this can be very challenging. So maybe if we try to accept that which is hard to accept, then maybe our karma with Saturn will become more comfortable or improve as well. Because that way, when things come up in our lives that are challenging to accept, we have a relative amount of acceptance about it because we can accept that which is different than us.
That is wonderful. That is so wise and brilliant. Absolutely true.
Thank you. So
Simple.
much.
Indeed.
Thank you so much. So we've been talking about Saturn for 3 hours, and that is wonderful. And we could talk about the karma of Saturn and how to improve our karma with Saturn for another 12 hours, I'm sure.
Yes.
But now I want to get the community involved. And so I've prepared 3 examples that from the community, and I've confirmed with these individuals that they will be attending the webinar. So I would like to call them into the webinar and look at these questions with them. And if we have time at the end afterwards, maybe we can answer a couple more live questions from the audience as well. But first, let's start with these examples that I've prepared. So Shashank Walia, would you please come on the panel?
Okay.
I look. So I have asked Shashank.
Okay.
Yes, he's here. Can we unmute him?
Yes.
Hello.
Namaste, Shashank.
Namaste, sir. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. I was just waiting for this beautiful lecture, and I was at a friend's marriage, and I just, just had a dinner in 15 minutes, and I came back.
Well, I'm so honored. I'm so honored that you have made the time to be here against some circumstances, and I'm really hope that we could answer your questions that you have presented to me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was just waiting for this moment to come, and finally it's here.
I thought that your example was so auspicious because you are a Sagittarius Saturn Lugna. So
Yes.
I found that this was an extremely appropriate example for many of the things that that we are discussing. And maybe perhaps to some extent you already feel like we have answered some of these questions. But I want to answer these questions specifically for your chart. Now, the first question is, as you mentioned, your Saturn is your ascendant in Sagittarius. And for the first time in your life, you're having your Saturn return. And it's transiting your Lugna. So what kind of karma should I do, or what kind of karmic actions might be beneficial for you in particular? The second question is also, what mantra should I chant when Saturn will be stationed in the month of April 2017, which can deliver superb results? These are your questions, correct, sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So I have Shashank chart here, have North Indian on left and South Indian on right. Shashank, is this your correct birth chart?
Yes, yes, it's perfect.
Okay, fantastic. So as you can see, Shashank has a Lugna of Saturn in Sagittarius, a retrograde. And that's what we'll be focusing on in our analysis today. So my answer to your first question is, and this is based on my analysis of your chart as well as some intuition that I was feeling, is that your Saturn return will be in the long run favorable and rewarding for the fulfillment of your soul's potential. It has indications for your Dharma because it's in your Lugna. This transit over your Lugna would, however, suggest certain challenges, obstacles, and delays you will face during Shani's visit in Sagittarius, which means a great amount of success is available during this time, but in order to reach that success, like we mentioned with the nature of Saturn, you will have to overcome certain obstacles in order for this profound growth and change to manifest. And because you are just starting your Saturn return, you will experience the greatest reward towards the latter end of your Saturn return, because Saturn is a planet that generally likes to delay for about as long as it possibly can. And usually the rewards are in the last 25% of the period. Some astrologers would say that the retrograde might cause the rewards to manifest for you sooner. There will be certain restructurings and reorganizations that go on for you, both on the material realm and the physical plane, like your work and your home and potentially your relationship, but also on the spiritual plane. So while a great amount of work and perseverance will be required of you, which means my intuition is that you will have to work very hard, potentially long hours, and with a lot amount of focus and discipline and hard work. I have no doubt or a strong intuition that it will pay off with a great reward. And so this Saturn transit over your Lugna, because the Sagittarius also has to do with morals and ethics, this will be one of the most helpful times in your life for your maturity as an individual. What's not saying that before the Saturn return that you are not mature, but I'm saying that your beliefs, your morals and ethics, that you will begin to really be an example. You will really begin to live your life by an example in terms of what is this mature, moral, and ethical higher version of yourself. Now, in terms of karmas, this is a little bit of how I think the karma will manifest. But in terms of how the karma will be beneficial for you over the Saturn return, I mentioned earlier that serving others and being of service is one of the primary things. But when Saturn is in Sagittarius, it has its connection to the legal or the justice system. So you will receive a great amount of benefit or positive karma in serving those that have been treated unfairly by the legal or justice system. So those who struggle with legal or justice related issues, these are the people that you will receive, that you are most predisposed to being able to help. To those that are treated unfairly, to those that are treated unkindly, not necessarily just legally, but those that are, it's important for you to serve, to make people feel they are being treated fairly when they have been treated unfairly. And so one of the specific karmas that I think will be highly beneficial for you is to volunteer within the criminal justice or the prison system, or to volunteer to close or serve those who struggle with or have been victims of the legal system. So in terms of service that I think will be particularly auspicious for you will be to go do some kind of community service in a prison. Now, Saturn has indications for fairness and equality, as I mentioned. And so it would be profoundly beneficial for you to apply focus, perseverance, and help with organization to those that have been treated less or equal or unfair in their lives. When I mentioned earlier that Saturn in Sagittarius is a freedom fighter, is someone who fights for the rights, for the human rights that all of us have. And so there is a great amount of positive karma and energy for you in being a freedom fighter and supporting and helping those that have been treated less than equal or unfair in their lives. So your ability to support those which are not supported or are treated unfairly, highly auspicious for you at this time. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it will be helpful for your karma to embody humane treatment, fairness, and equal treatment of all people, and standing for the rights as human beings. So one of the things that can happen is there can be a restructuring or a reformation of your beliefs, thoughts, and consciousness to ensure every aspect of your life is fair and humane and ensures freedom for all. So not that you don't already think this way, but over this time period, you may go through some changing in how you think about something so that your life is about fairness and humanity. So not that you have a criticism or some kind of judgment over people who struggle, but instead of that, there might be a shift in a consciousness so that instead of being critical, if there was any criticism of, drug addicts, things like that, that it will be a restructuring so that you will be able to serve these people in a greater way.
This is a great point, because I just wanted to share something with you. As when Saturn started transiting through my Lagna, the first thing which got restructured is in the thought system. Like I had some mystical experiences overnight, and I used to see some repetitive numbers, which in Western astrology they say it's a synchronicity stuff, right? So you start seeing 11.11, then you start seeing, like, I need to share with you. Here it's like 11.33, 2.22, 10.01, 11.11. It's it's in a single day I see the synchronicity. and I keep seeing repetitive numbers, and I had a very good experience, and I buy this book, Genevieve Lewis Paulson's Kundalini and the Chakra book,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a very good experience on my spine, and I was unable to recognize that what's happening with me. As far as I'm concerned with the Kundalini chakras, I have a very good knowledge about this, and I started researching on this. And few days back, I had a very uh, big pain at back of my spine, and I don't know what's going on, but there's a lot of change that's getting in my head and my belief system, my thoughts, and my DNA is restructuring and all. And I started researching on different prospects and areas of my life. That's what's happening. But still, I need to keep some patience that I'm experiencing some mystique and some fantastic changes in my life. So that point is like restructuring yourself is the important point which I got through your slide.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a restructuring, a reformation of your consciousness as a whole. And at the end of that transformation, you will be more connected to the highest version of yourself. Like Sagittarius is connected to Jupiter. So this restructuring or retransformation, it's absolutely necessary for your full realization of who you are as an individual, all of your potential, all of your happiness, all of your success. But you're just starting to go through that restructuring or reorganization process. So like you mentioned, patience is going to be extremely helpful as you go through this great transformation into this version of yourself, which is going to have a more advanced consciousness. And also, it will reconnect you because this is the Lagna with the essence of your Dharma. Definitely.
And you mentioned about the remedies back with some oils, and soon, like it came, and I just bought this book, aromatherapy, the essential oils.
Nice.
And I was having no knowledge about essential oil, but this transit had made me learn about this essential oils and aromatherapy within 15 days of time.
Well,
and
yes. Yeah, it's because Saturn is activating the aging process as well as the Vata dosha. You are going to naturally have inspirations into what you can do in your life to help balance that. So these especially books, oils, medicines, any forms of alternative healings, these are going to be helpful for you in terms of balancing, keeping your Vata dosha balanced over the course of your Saturn return.
Because the way I breathe, it's very fast. As you mentioned before a few minutes ago, that people who breathe very fast have a life, they decrease their age. So I had that problem, but since I've been like doing sports and I'm doing the pranayama and all, and with several meditation and this aromatherapy sessions, I just trying to control my breath so that the vata dosha gets in control, and I got a very good results. Well, I was not a big fan of pranayams and yogas. I never did it, but this thing has helped me a lot. And whatever thing I saw on those slides, but actually I think that the slides were definitely made for me because it's very lucky session for me. I was just connecting that whatever you say, the same thing is going with me. Not it's in terms of the Saturn transit, but before the Saturn transit, in the natal chart, is it in Lagna only?
Mm-hmm.
So throughout the lifetime, I have experienced good things, and I'm a kind of a guy who always follow the law, commitments. I'm very honest, and I'm a vegan person. I never ate non-veg in my life. I'm a non-alcoholic guy, and I don't smoke. So I don't know what brands alcohols are available. No smoking, nothing. I'm a very sattvic guy who just follow the spiritual path, and I'm a very big fan of spirituality.
Beautiful.
So that's Saturn has given me automatically all that things which I needed. I didn't go anywhere to find all these things. It's automatically in my genes from the birth.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Saturn and Sagittarius does, and my friend, I also have Saturn and Sagittarius, so we're sharing the Saturn return. But one of the things is it's this incredible transformation into the highest version of yourself. And not that you weren't the highest version of yourself before the Saturn transit, but because Saturn is in Sagittarius, it shows that during the return, there is still some moral and ethical growth. And that moral and ethical growth, it's related to your beliefs. And that's why there's a restructuring. But also it's related to the embodiment of those beliefs. So once your beliefs come restructure, then the Saturn is like a guru. You will begin to embody these values. And this is how you transform into the highest version of yourself. So I think this period for you is the very beginning into a transformation into your own inner guru.
Yeah, absolutely right. And it's been I don't know, I've been very lucky. I mean, since Saptarishis and Sunilji has uploaded the updates that we are having some lectures and seminars with Kṣaṇāti ji, and just being apart from the first lecture of career, I was not able to meet with you. But then the relationship part, and then the I have been connected to you since those lectures, and you've been seeing my horoscope again and again and again, and you are now remembering that I have seen something.
Yeah.
And again, when he uploaded, Sunilji uploaded about this Saturn, I was the first person to register, I guess, because as he uploaded, it was 1 minute past, and I just jumped in my email ID and I registered it, and I sent the question that I need. This is what I need. This is my dream on Saturn transit.
Yeah.
To connect to.
Yeah, it was definitely an alignment, because as soon as I saw your name, I'm like, I know him. I know his chart. I cannot wait to see his example. So it worked out perfectly.
Great.
Now,
we hope you're happy, Shashank.
Yeah, quickly, his second question was, which mantra would I recommend? And the sutra that I had in the beginning of the presentation, I would recommend that sutra, and then the tantric meditation 108 times. I just think this is the most powerful mantra you can do. And yes, if you can do it in front of a shani yantra, and it will be very auspicious, my friend.
Just a last question before we go to some other slides. I had this silver ring in my hand, which shows the infinity symbol, which represents Saturn.
Very cool.
So I just want to know that on which finger should I wear this on, or on which hand I should wear this. If anything, you look at my horoscope, you need to suggest, because I wear in the right hand ring finger. Right now I'm wearing it in the ring finger on the right hand. So
I would recommend middle finger, Saturn finger.
And this is in silver. Is it okay?
Yeah, silver's okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. My pleasure, Shashank, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you again, my friend. Namah Shivaya.
Namah Shivaya, sir. Thank you so much, and keep blessing us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
And thank you to Inge for helping me out and sending me the mails, and Batina and all entire team of Saptarishis and Sunilji for giving us so good opportunity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Shashank, to share your chart with us and giving us one example. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Okay, next I would like to call Hemant Bengani.
Give me a few seconds.
Of course.
Yes.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. It's my pleasure to be part of this panel, and I'm really grateful that you have taken my question just to see. It's because I'm very naive in astrology. I have just started visiting such blogs because I'm quite interested in these things, and just because of scarcity of time, I just try to take a couple of hours a day just to read a little bit, because I'm a biomedical scientist by profession. So try to see, and I always get more and more interested in these things and try to learn more and more as I can.
Beautiful. Yes, I feel like the more I study Jyotish, the more I feel it is a pure science.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question that I've received for you, which I picked because I like it, it's a mystical, spiritual, ritualistic question. And maybe I would like Inge to share her thoughts as well after me. But the question was, is it fine/right? And I think what you meant, is it auspicious?
Sorry, yeah, just continue.
To keep Shani Deva idol or photo or yantra in your house and puja room and light Deepak in front of the idol or photo on Saturday. Is there anything else you would like to share along that question?
So basically, there are lots of views and misconceptions, because most of the people think that since Sunny Deva is a lot of loneliness, it's a lot of vairagya. It's not a part of a general family as such. So worshipping Sunny Deva is fine, but keeping or worshipping in the house, whether it's auspicious or not, I'm not sure. Because I have read different blogs and different articles regarding that, and there are different views. Because one group of people think that it is not good to keep inside the house, because since it's the lord of sorrow, lord of loneliness and all sort of things, so you worship them, but you worship in a place where the idol is like a proper mandir or proper temple, and put diya or something like that in that temple, instead of bringing any idol or any photo in your own home and then lighting a lamp or something like that in front of the idol in the home itself, basically.
Yes. So great question. And the first thing that I want to say is, and when we look at your chart, we see that Saturn is retrograde in Leo in the 9th house. This is your correct chart, sir?
Yeah.
Okay. So 3 things that I want to point out. One is that that you're not in Saturn Mahadasha, you are not in Sarisati, and you are also not in a Saturn return. So as far as the times in your life where Saturn will be the most emphasized, it's not currently right now. But that does not mean that you do not honor Shani.
No. I'm just doing these all things from last 20 years. So,
Yeah.
but since right now I am based in UK, so we don't have a proper mandir or something like that. Because when I was in India, there are lots and lots of temples you can visit and do all sort of things. But if you are outside the country, then you don't find the facilities, you don't find a proper place to do all sort of things. Then you just do what you have availability with you.
Yeah, and Saturn is the ruler and this big manifester of our karma. So I don't think no matter where Saturn is, what time of life we're in, we can always honor Shani Deva. And so the reason I took your question first is because I wanted to say, of course you can honor Shani Deva. Of course you can have a photo or idol of yantra of Shani Deva and worship that in your home. Now, of course, just like the gemstone, just like these other things, sometimes when we're really calling forward on that Saturn energy, we're also encouraging challenges, tests, growth, and adversity. So sometimes when we're really calling on Saturn's energy strong, we're encouraging that. But we're encouraging us to go through our karma in an accelerated fashion. So even though it would be most emphasized if you are in Saturn period or return, it's still highly beneficial for you in terms of working through your karma and the acceleration of your karma. Now, I haven't studied the art of Vastu in detail. My primary study is in Jyotish, but I have studied some Vastu. And when it comes to Saturn and Vastu, it's important that you have a specific altar just for Shani. And that the altar for Shani must be facing west. So anyway, it is highly auspicious when you're altar for Shani is for Shani alone, and it's in a western part of the house, in a western part of the room. This is the most auspicious or favorable, based on the Vastu, which I'm not that proficient in, but I know Saturn is west is best. Now, I said it was a highly auspicious gesture in terms of honoring Shani, but I feel that it will be more auspicious if the Shani's altar is just for Shani and in a western direction. So this will it is auspicious, but this is a way to even furthermore improve the auspiciousness. Yeah, so as I mentioned, even though this will be highly beneficial for you in terms of improving your karma with Saturn, if I was to do a full reading of your chart, Saturn wouldn't be the first planet I would tell you to work with. You just entered your double Venus Mahadasha.
Yeah.
So it's very important that you work on your planetary karma with Venus. Even though it is helpful, and I'm not saying don't honor Shani, but I would say prioritize Venus over Shani at this time.
Yeah, that generally I do, like basically because I just try to make a point that every first Friday of every month I used to go to temple and donate donate ghee, donate oil, anything which the temple needs basically as such. Mostly anything which is related to white thing, maybe it's sugar, maybe it's milk product or something like that.
Beautiful. Yeah, exactly. And so I encourage you to work with Saturn as long as you're not forgetting Venus, which I think is being emphasized right now. So I think it's beautiful to work with Saturn as well as Venus, but I would not. So I just wanted to make sure that in some way you were working with Venus at this time.
Yeah.
And then I also, because of your position of Saturn conjunct with Rahu, it's retrograde in the sign of Leo, Saturn is in a troubled condition. And so this will be very beneficial in terms of improving your karma. And because Saturn is in the 9th house, this is spirituality, this is the religion of the guru. So any religious, spiritual, or religious ritual you can do to honor Saturn is going to be highly beneficial. So I think it is highly auspicious and recommended to light the Deepak or candle, or as Inge mentioned, the oil in an iron bowl in front of a Shani Yantra Deva or altar that is west facing.
Yeah, basically because I have put my puja ghar, my temple, in the northeast corner, which is facing toward the west basically. So all the idols are facing west, but the idols are in the northeast corner of the house basically. So it's like all the idols are in the same place, whether it is Lord Shiva, whether it's Lord Shani Deva, whether it's Hanuman, Ganesha, Lakshmi, everything. So I used to worship every day different gods. Like for example, I have a small Shivlinga in the temple, and I used to pour water and milk on daily basis, because that's, as I told you, because it's not easy here to find temple and all. So, but as much as you can do in your home, that's fine basically.
Yeah. So I think that's fine. And I think what you're doing is auspicious and beneficial. But again, my overall intuition, just as like two things that came to me, was also important to honor Venus, and that it will be most auspicious if you can have a separate altar just for Shani on a west wall.
Okay, means you mean to a separate photo or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Did that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, that's great. So just one question, like what you say, how you can, like for the Venus, what is the best thing basically, like as you say, how to pray Venus in that context?
Such a beautiful question. I'm going to do a whole other webinar on this. But for the time being, obviously Venus mantra, you wear the colors silver, white, but it's very important. And again, this is digressing a little bit from Saturn, but it is important in honor of Venus to experience what life has to offer. And but again, I will do a whole presentation on Venus, and I hope you will join me for that as well.
That's it.
One very small point
Yeah.
from my side
Please.
would be to honor women
Yeah, that's
and girls.
to respect women. That is foremost thing, basically. If you want to please,
Yes.
if you want to please the Venus, so you have to respect women.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you very much for that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Hemant.
thank
Yeah.
you to you.
Thanks.
Namaste.
I believe we have a third example.
4. We have 3 and 4. Okay, so next, can we please call Neelu Rajput?
Mhm.
Yes.
Namaste, Neelu.
I'm unable to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Namaste. It's a pleasure to meet you. So first, let's take a look at your question, and then we'll dive into it. I liked your question because it is advanced, and I like your question because it takes a look at the karakas, which we haven't really touched on in our analysis. So I think it will be nice to look at a question involving the karakas. So thank you for your question.
Oh, thank you. It's my honor.
So the question was, and feel free to add anything if when I'm done that wasn't communicated, but the question was, as a person having Saturn as their Amacha Karaka, it is obvious that he has to wait longer than others for her career establishment. But what policy or which attitude must be followed for my career? Which habit should be dropped? How would I know at which point I am doing something wrong? What is stopping me from doing my best? I know patience is the best remedy, but I still want to know if I am making a mistake with Saturn. I want to know what Saturn is telling me to do and follow.
Yes, sir. This is my question.
Great. Is the chart that I have here your correct chart?
Yes, sir.
So in this chart, I understand that Saturn to be your Amacha Karaka and your Atma Karaka to be Mercury, yes?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. This is going to be a very important relationship to discuss. Now, when Shani Devya is the Atmacha Karaka in one's chart, it holds the utmost dignity, power, and authority in the cabinet of one's chart. It's like the second in command. It's the boss underneath the boss. It indicates the top advisor to the Atma Karaka. It is considered to guide the desires and dreams of the Atma. Therefore, is it associated with one's work, career, and profession. It is even said in the ancient text that the Atma is dependent on the Amacha Karaka at the time of birth, because the Amacha Karaka is necessary to have the soul reach its potential. So that, in a sense, the soul at the time of birth is even more dependent on the Amacha Karaka than the Atma Karaka, because it's the Atma Karaka needs the Amatya Karaka to grow. Now, the Amacha Karaka has significations for the 2nd, 5th, and 9th and 10th houses. And because of its association with the 10th houses has its indications for the career and the profession and the work. The Amatya Karaka nourishes or is said to feed the Atma Karaka. And therefore, the Atma requires dependence on the Amatya. So there is a dependent relationship of Mercury on your Saturn. Now, your Saturn return over your Lagna being the Atmakaraka, as you can see, Saturn in Sagittarius. Your Saturn return over your Lagna being the Amachakaraka will be a significant and profound shift for you. In terms of policies and attitudes, as you had mentioned, it is important, as you know, to always be patient. And that career growth and success, as well as improvement in every area of your life, because it's in the Lagna, will come with the aid of slow-moving Shanaishcharya. So it is essential to be patient, especially in terms of your career growth and success, because all of your success is going to come in a slow and steady way. Now, since Shani Deva is feeding Budaya here, Mercury, it is important to take the energies of Saturn, which are patience, time, focus, and determination, and always employ these aspects before communicating or action, because Budaya is the planet of communication and intelligence and discrimination. And so because that Saturn is feeding Mercury, one of the main energies is to really take your time and to be focused and patient before you express or act. And this will be one of the lessons that will be encouraging between this relationship of Saturn and Mercury. Therefore, it is going to be important for you, particularly, to be patient with your expressions and your words. If you mentioned, what bad habit should I drop? If there, and I'm not saying you even have this bad habit, but if there was a bad habit to be dropped, it is that you communicate or express without proper patience or focus. So
anger, you can say like anger.
Yes, and I summarized it as an insincere or poorly focused expression. So an expression that isn't what you truly mean and isn't coming out the way it is truly the best way to come out. So because communication might be impulsive, then it will come out in a way that isn't what you really believe. And that's what I mean by insincere. And it won't become focused. So it might be hard for other people to understand this as well. So if there's any habit that is to be dropped or emphasized, to take a long time to be patient and focused before any expression is made. And this will make the expression a lot more accurate for how you truly feel. For example, when something comes out in anger, that could be because we really feel sad, but it comes out as anger. And that is because we haven't taken the amount of patience and focus before the expression, and we are acting out of our emotion.
Yes, sir, you are right.
So, and I tried to answer a lot of the questions you have. And you asked, how do I know if I'm doing something right or wrong? And I feel that if you feel you are a victim to the test of the challenge, instead of feeling the endurance or strength to overcome it, that is when you know you are doing something wrong. So when you feel that the challenge is too great for you to handle, when you feel strength and power and pride in knowing there is a challenge or adversity, but believing in yourself to overcome it, that is when you are you are on the right path.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Therefore, if you know you are doing well, if you feel patient, humble, content, honest, and not judgmental. One is really struggling with Saturn karma when they feel impatient, egotistical, like a victim, critical, discontent, or dishonest.
Yeah.
So it's a bad day with Saturn when you're feeling those negative things. It's a good day with Saturn when you're feeling those positive things. So in its role as the Atma Yakaraka, as I mentioned, it's saying take time, patience, focus, and discipline, specifically when it comes to your thoughts, words, communications, and expressions. And the simplest way to put this is to wait, think, and focus before communicating. And this will be a simple remedy that will promote good karma as Shani's role as your Amachakaraka.
I'll take care of it.
Thank you.
Expressing my word.
Does everything resonate? Does everything feel good?
Yes, sir. Very light.
Thank you so much, Nilu. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time, and I hope that this has been helpful for you. And please, I hope to see you in my future webinars as well. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste, Nilu.
Thank you, ma'am. Namaste, ma'am.
Sri. I'm not sure what Sri's last name is. I wasn't given a last name, so just looking for someone as Sri.
Yes, might raise hand also, then I will understand. Or come on the chat. Here we have something coming in. Shri K, okay.
Yes, there he or she is.
Fantastic.
But one minute, yes?
No rush, yeah.
Got.
Namaste, Sri. I see your video.
Thank you for taking my question.
Oh, thank you for coming on and being here today. I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you for providing me this.
I am particularly partial to your questions, Sri.
Oh, wow. That's sweet.
Yes, and I'll discuss a little bit why, but let's go over your question first.
Sure.
You have started your Rahu Mahadasha, and you're also running Satisati at the same time.
Yes.
Your question is that Saturn gets exalted at 21 degrees in Libra, and we talked about some of the effects of Saturn being exalted in Libra. Your Rahu is placed in 22 degrees at Vishaka, whose ruling planet is Jupiter, and Jupiter is in Gandanta at 29.5 degrees. Now,
yes.
Rahu, the reason you express that is because Rahu is said to act like Saturn, and is said to be is said to also be a ruler of Kumbha, and that is it significant to have Rahu in the same degree that Saturn is exalted? So what does it do to Rahu to be in this around 21 degrees of Libra, right?
Yes.
Yes. And I love this question. So this is your chart. We have a Kumbha Lagna with a Surya, and we also have a Saturn Cancer and a Rahu Libra.
Yes. Retrograde Saturn, I believe.
Yes. And again, I am partial to this question, but I also like this question to bring Rahu and its relationship to Saturn. And then why are they related, and what that might represent. even though I'm going to do a whole presentation on Rahu, which I am very excited
Oh,
about.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. So as I mentioned, I want to share that I am partial to this because it is similar to some energies I have in my own chart. I am a Kumbha Lagna with Rahu, and my Rahu is in 15 degrees in Satabisha Nakshatra, which is a Rahu-ruled nakshatra.
Yes.
So I am Kumbha, but double Rahu. And so this energy, I've done a lot of looking into it. And I found it interesting as well that your sun is also in Satabisha Nakshatra.
And
So,
my ascendant is also in Shatabisha.
which is ruled by Rahu. So
Yes.
even though Kumbha Lagna having a lot of Rahu influence through Satabisha by the ascendant and the sun in Satabisha. So for a Kumbha Lagna, Rahu can act functionally benefic. And so what that means is even though for all other Lagna that Rahu likes to act malefic, specifically for Kumbha Lagna, sometimes it will act benefic, which is why it's functionally benefic, which means it has an auspicious result. So it sometimes can be very challenging, but that Rahu can act functionally benefic in the sign of Aquarius. And so it will relate to the Aquarius Lagna in a more benefic way than it would any other Lagna. So Rahu karma, as it relates to Kumbha, can be more comfortable or auspicious, and at the very least, it'll at least be more bearable. Bearable, and that means that at least you can be able to make it through. So even if it's not positive, it will be at least bearable. And so that is why there's a functional benefic relationship between Kumbha and Rahu. Now, some astrologers don't want to say that Rahu co-own Aquarius, but I like to think that it does. And so I like that you mentioned that is co-owner. And this can influence the Rahu's karma to be emphasized or given power in this lifetime. Since Rahu is, so as a Kumbha Lagna, it gives Rahu power. And this, which means emphasis in your chart. And this is even further emphasized by the fact that your ascendant and sun nakshatra is Satabisha. But this doesn't always act, even though it will be functionally benefic, that it will still can have a lot of malefic influence, but it's just going to be more beneficial than most. So, okay, so as I mentioned, it is said that Saturn and Rahu act similarly sometimes. And as you put it, they are the co-owner of Lagna, and that they both share this connection to Kumbha. But I want you to know that they both act extremely different in the sign of Libra. Saturn is exalted in Libra, but do I not believe Rahu to be exalted in Libra? Even though both Saturn and Rahu are friends with Venus. So Rahu only has two friends, Venus and Saturn. Rahu is a lot closer with Saturn than it is with Venus, but Saturn is closer with Venus than it is with Rahu.
Okay.
So Saturn is better friends with Venus than Rahu is.
Okay.
So, but Saturn is still friends with Venus. So I'm just kind of emphasizing a hierarchy of relationship in which Rahu's closest friend is Saturn, but Saturn is closer with Venus. So it's kind of, it's interesting. The analogy, there are many analogies that come to my mind, but it's like there is, Saturn is like a grandfather, and Venus is the granddaughter. And Rahu is the rebellious grandson. And the grandfather loves both grandchildren, but he's a little more favorable to the granddaughter.
Got it.
So Libra in its friendship does present a mixed effects in terms of the karma, but because of its friendship in Venus and you're a Kumbha Lagna, I feel it overall auspicious or favorable energy. Now, Libra is always seeking to bring us into balance and harmony and at peace with all things. And when Saturn is in Libra, it helps us do that through patience, discipline, and focus. We become in balance and harmony through our lives. So through a lot of challenges, we overcome these adversities and it puts us into balance and harmony. When Rahu is in Libra, it brings the individual into balance and harmony through the infinite experiences of life.
Oh, yeah.
And that includes all of the aspects of life that need to be experienced that are being influenced by a Rahu energy. So when Rahu is in Libra, it does bring you into balance and harmony, but you have to experience everything that is possible to experience in order to get there. And this includes some experiences that are positive, and this includes some of these experiences which are challenging, are not who you are, or are negative. But when you go through those experiences, which are challenging, which are difficult or negative, you realize that is not who you are. And in the process, you remove those things out of your life and you become more into balance and harmony.
Very true.
There's a little more of an energy when Rahu is in Libra of having to go through many, or an infinite amount of experiences, both good and bad, in order to get to that place of balance and harmony.
Okay.
Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, and just one more question, that Rahu matures at the age 42, they say. So will it reduce the maleficency?
Yes. And also your Rahu is it will reduce the maleficacy. And also you had your Rahu return many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so as Rahu gets further and further away from Libra,
mm-hmm.
this will become less and less malefic.
Okay.
Now, eventually, if you have another return of Rahu in this lifetime, the challenges will come back again. And my intuition around this is I like to say that Rahu is the soul's bucket list. And which means there are many things which our soul wants to do, but our soul has not got to yet. And when Rahu is strong, it's a time when we need to do those things which our soul desires to do. But sometimes those experiences can take us away into totally strange directions of our life. So in a sense that, yes, Rahu's maturity will help. And also Rahu is transiting your Lagna. So, I mean, Ketu is transiting your Lagna. And so also when Ketu leaves your Lagna, it will become easier as well.
Okay. So does Jupiter being in Gandanta play any role?
I think it does play some role, but it wasn't.
Because I find myself, as the Rahu Mahadasa started, I started looking into astrology and more going into spirituality and more calm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. And I think it does have a ruler too, and that Jupiter is the natural ruler of the 9th house.
Oh.
Yeah. That's Jupiter's favorite place. So there's always some kind of Jupiter's influence on the 9th house. And I do feel that Jupiter is having an aspect here, which is making this aspect a part of the realization of your inner guru and part of the realization of your mystical potential in this lifetime. Because one of the things that Rahu represents is the full realization of our occult or mystical power.
Because previously, like a year ago or so, if I do some astrology stuff, I wouldn't understand a thing. But suddenly, right now, I understand everything.
Yeah,
like grasping stuff better.
And over the course of your Rahu Madasha, you will just become better.
Thank God. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So let's see. So Rahu in Libra, I mentioned. one should truly experience everything that is offered in life, everything that is possible. So it's not good when Rahu is in Libra if when you are in your older part of your life, like your 70s or 80s, that you should already have experienced everything that you want to.
Okay.
So it's important that you experience everything that is possible and offered in life. And through the experience of all of these possibilities will come specific answers to your dharma. So as you experience all of these things, it's showing you closer and closer to your dharma. And part of that is because Rahu is in the 9th house. And so Rahu's position in the 9th house, I mentioned the finding the balance of Libra through experience of your spiritual and religious journey throughout life, influencing the guru relationship as well. So part of the possibilities and experiences that you are meant to experience are in the field of religious and mystical, in the religious and mystical field. So it's important that you focus this exploration in a spiritual or guru direction.
I'll definitely do that. And do you advise any, I do wear a sapphire, blue sapphire.
Yeah.
Is it advisable? Because my Saturn is in 6th in Cancer, retrograde.
My primary recommendation with your Rahu Mahadasha would be a Kṣaṇāti.
Kṣaṇāti, okay.
On the middle finger of your left hand.
Okay.
Pancha Dhatus, 5 metals, but at least 3 metals. Copper, silver, and gold.
Oh, the mixed. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I think that the Kṣaṇāti on the left hand, because as I mentioned, I believe wearing things on the left hand reduce the malefic aspect of the energy. I think that will be beneficial.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sri. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Great. You must be also very tired now, Kṣaṇāti. You are talking so long and wisely and nice things.
Yes, I'm wondering if we should conclude or if we should do an example or two. How do you feel?
Well, I think we've gone on for quite a while.
4 hours, I think.
4 hours.
4 hours straight.
Wonderful.
Okay.
There's a lot to digest, and it was absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Great insights and remedies that you were sharing. So,
thank you so much.
yeah, what do you think? We conclude here. Madhura.
What to say?
Yeah.
For Madhura, it is very late.
Yes.
It is 1:30 in India.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Sweet Shiva.
It was really wonderful, Sanati.
Oh,
really wonderful.
As always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Perhaps I can make a couple closing comments.
Please.
Sure.
Okay.
That will be a nice idea, because questions are very difficult if they are not Saturn related. Like, it is all the time coming up as a very natural effect to ask about one's own chart, of course. But we have to see the chart in a full, and we cannot create it now in a hassle.
Yeah. That's why I think it was very helpful to have those 4 examples, and that I had much time to prepare for them, because then I can really.
Yes. And in this case, we always provide one email address within the announcement of your webinars, which you're holding for Saptarishis at present. Yeah. We always announce one email address along with it, in which everyone can ask perfect question for the related topic. And this gives you the time to make a chart, put it into a PPT, and then we can take it up as an example. Yeah. So for further webinars, please write
Definitely.
an email,
please,
in advance.
please. Okay, great. Yes, I feel like it will be nice to do some closing comments. And yeah, it's just this ocean of Jyotish is infinite and it's vast. And we talk for Saturn for 4 hours, and we really only dip our toes in the first inches of the water. And but it's been such an honor, and I think there's such a profound spiritual energy when we are all together with the intention of how to improve our karma with Saturn. When we all share this love of Shani, this intention to improve our relationship, this then Shani smiles for all of us. And so a couple finishing comments, just to kind of summarize some of the points that we discussed. Saturn is necessary for any spiritual growth or change to manifest. So if it's a spiritual path that you're on, if you want to face your karma, if you want to grow throughout your life, then Shani Deva is your ally. The most profound way to grow is with these virtues: great patience, humility, and acceptance. And to embody and possess these virtues, no matter how great the challenge, how great the delay, no matter how great the test or the adversity, when we can remain these higher qualities, no matter how great is the challenge, this is such a profound growth in our relationship with Saturn. Saturn is a great guru. And for me, I consider Saturn and Jupiter equal in terms of their guru potential, because Saturn helps us do the work necessary to achieve our greatest success, as well as become the most virtuous soul in the process. And so Saturn does not grant any success, grant any achievement, grant any prosperity or success unless the soul is deserving and virtuous enough to receive the reward. So Saturn does not allow for any success until we are fully ready to receive it in our body, mind, spirit, and soul. Therefore, for Saturn karma, in order to achieve success, prosperity, and happiness, we must strive for and embody the qualities of Saturn: patience, humility, acceptance, honesty, and ultimately surrender. And I mentioned this a few times, but to me is the essence, is that Saturn teaches us to surrender our individual will, which is connected to our desires, which connects it to our understanding of time. We want to become a doctor on this day. We want to become married on this day. We want to have children on this day. Well, that is our will. That is our ego. That is our desire. And when we can surrender that individual will, surrender our need to desire and control, then the Creator's will or God's will or the universe's will can manifest through us. So Saturn controls, but when we let go of our control, then the will of the universe, the will of God, it works through us. So to fight Saturn is to fight the will of God. There's no good that will come of this. When the surrender takes place, Saturn allows the Creator's will to manifest through us. We become a channel for the universe's purpose for us. And we become connected to our true purpose and our highest self. And I think this might be the greatest way to improve our karma with Saturn. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Kṣaṇāti.
Thank you very much, Kṣaṇāti, for all your teachings and for your great patience. You were talking for such a long time. People are also very grateful. You have seen all the comments, I hope.
Looking now.
Wonderful.
Lots of beautiful comments.
Yes, we are happy if you are happy.
I'm so happy.
In the name of Saptarishis Astrology and Sunil ji, we thank all of you for your patience and participation. And we hope to see you in our next webinar or somewhere else soon.
Thank you, Inge. Thank you, Bettina. Thank you, Madhura. Thank you, Shri Sunilji and Saptarishis Astrology team and the community here for joining the webinar and participating. I am so honored and so touched at the deepest of my heart and in such gratitude for all of the love and support we all share for astrology, Jyotish, and the beautiful Vedic tradition. And so thank you, everybody. Namah Shivaya.
Wonderful. Namah Shivaya.
So with this we end, and we wish all of you a great time, evening, morning, afternoon, whatever you are having, and sleep well, Madhura.
Thank you, Ingrid.
Thank you, everybody. Jai Shani Deva. Om Namah Shivaya.